Bleach. Studying medicine can't save the spirit world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Unsolvable Problem. Seeing the Shinigami of the 9th Division carrying away Senbon without even a word of medical fee or thanks, Makoto Senju could do nothing but sigh that people's hearts have changed. The Shinigami of today obviously haven't been beaten by Mayurika or such unique transformation technology treatment, otherwise they would understand how gentle Makoto Senju is. But no matter what, curing Senbon has always achieved Makoto Senju's goal. Maybe he can get rid of the title of gynecology nobleman. It is enough to let the Shinigami of the Seireitei know that although they were arranged in the gynecology department by Unohana, they are definitely best at surgical treatment. Unohana, who witnessed the entire treatment process of Makoto Senju, also said in agreement. Makoto, your zanpakutō ability does have an incomparable and unique advantage in treating external injuries. Even the spirits of the captains can be directly replenished with spirit particles. Makoto Senju scratched his head and answered innocently. In fact, there are still many shortcomings. The efficiency of treating captain-level Shinigami is still relatively poor, especially since many key spiritual structures need to be refilled bit by bit. It would be great if we could achieve an efficiency similar to the high-speed regeneration of the hollows. Unohana heard this, and said with a gentle look in his eyes. Makoto, I believe you will grow to this level sooner or later. After a pause, Unohana asked with some curiosity. Aren't you resting today? Why are you here? Then, Senju Makoto did not have the slightest intention of hiding anything, and told Unohana everything that happened today, even the fact that Byakuya planned to raise onions outside. However, Unohana interest was obviously not in Gynecology and Byakuya, but asked with some surprise. I actually held that little Rukia and took care of her for several hours. I didn't expect that Makoto, at his age, would be so loving and patient with babies. Senju Makoto recalled the image of Rukia lying in the cradle, her bright and pure eyes, and her face that was so cute that people couldn't help but pinch it. Although Senju Makoto had no feelings for Onion Head, he obviously couldn't raise a trace of malice towards this harmless young life. A smile appeared on his face subconsciously, and he said, "Maybe, for this kind of newly conceived little life, I really don't seem to have any resistance. It seems that I can see that life is constantly continuing in them." Unohana, who was slowly returning to the direction of the 4th Division's barracks side by side with Senju Makoto, frowned slightly, and his silent thoughts gradually surged. Nurturing a little life. That should be a wonderful feeling, right? Would it be completely different from the feeling of life constantly passing away and being wiped out in your hands? Senju Makoto, who didn't notice the change in Unohana expression, suddenly thought of a question and said, "Teacher, there seems to be very little information about pregnancy in the gynecology department. Isn't this the responsibility of the gynecology department?" Unohana came back to her senses and said, "No, this is indeed the responsibility of the gynecology department, but this is an unsolvable problem." Huh. Senju Makoto was slightly startled, and then he noticed a common sense that he seemed to have ignored in the past. That is, in the Soul Society, new lives that are truly born from spirits are very rare, even pitifully rare. Aside from the Cheng-ge, which is basically not deliberately counted by the Seireitei, even the nobles and Shinigami living in the Seireitei often have very few descendants. Compared with the lifespans of Shinigami and nobles of hundreds or thousands of years, they have a long time to give birth to offspring, but the number of each generation is often quite limited. For example, the Cheng-ge family that Senju Makoto is most familiar with, the captain of the 6th Division, Cheng-ge, is the current head of the family. He has only one son, Cheng-ge, who is in poor health, and only one grandson, Cheng-ge. It is for this reason that, considering Cheng-ge's physical condition, Cheng-ge was confirmed as the future head of the Cheng-ge family early on. Of course, it is not that there are many descendants, and it would be better to have a civil war like the 9 dragons fighting for the crown prince. It is just that the ancient nobles like the Cheng-ge family have been passed down for who knows how many thousands of years. If it is not for a last resort, it is impossible to have so few descendants that the inheritance may be cut off at any time. Why? Is it difficult for spirits to give birth to new life? Senju Makoto asked Unohana in confusion. It's difficult, or perhaps very difficult, Unohana nodded and said. And this is difficult for outsiders to provide help, so there are basically no such patients in the gynecology department. Senju Makoto was about to agree with Unohana as usual, but suddenly realized that it seemed to be nonsense literature. Outsiders provide help. Have I been corrupted by Senbon Bancho and Julius Heli? Unohana continued. Unlike humans in the modern world who use fertilized eggs to slowly nurture souls, the essence of the spirits in soul society wanting to nurture life is more like nurturing a new soul with a soul, which is undoubtedly an offense to the gods. Therefore, if a spirit wants to nurture a new life, it often needs to make very long efforts to allow the two spirits to continue to deeply reconcile, so that the soul can reach a certain degree of resonance through the spirit, so that it is possible to give birth to a new life that inherits the characteristics of the parents' souls. It's just that it's obvious that this situation has gone beyond the normal scope of Udayu and medical skills. Therefore, although theoretically the problem of nurturing belongs to the gynecology department, it is obvious that the gynecology department also does not have the ability to provide help. Senju Makoto frowned, and then asked Unohana in disbelief. Teacher, can't you do it? Unohana expression froze slightly, and his eyes, which were always gentle and elegant, had a little more wondering meaning, and he answered. Teacher, I don't have any experience or research in this area, and this is not the direction of medicine that the teacher is interested in. After a moment, Unohana turned his eyes and found that Senju Makoto seemed to be lost in thought, as if thinking about something. Makoto, are you going to study this? Yes, Senju Makoto raised his head, showing a gentle and confident expression, and said. Since I am the disciple who inherited Unohana teacher, it is necessary to make innovations or contributions in certain fields to fill in certain gaps in Udayu and medical skills. Unohana smiled gently, and then seemed to think of something and asked. Then Makoto, how do you plan to carry out the research? Do you want the teacher to provide you with a couple? Or do you devote yourself? Senju Makoto. Chapter 102 Ratsu Measurement Units. Until Senju Makoto returned to his room, he was still thinking about what Unohana said. There was no doubt that Unohana was definitely teasing Senju Makoto, but he had to admit that it was an embarrassing problem that he had to face. Senju Makoto was originally a pure little virgin, how could he study such a deep topic at first glance? However, Senju Makoto also had his own plans. Filling the blank areas of Kido and medical skills in Soul Society was one thing, but more importantly, after mastering this ability, then, Senju Makoto could completely gain a foothold in the Seireitei. Not relying on Unohana status, but truly gaining a foothold in the Seireitei, and no longer having to worry about being treated as an abandoned child or ant and being wiped out like an ant. After all, the central 46th room, the nominally highest institution of the Seireitei, was essentially just a puppet controlled by the nobles. Once Senju Makoto mastered the ability to solve this kind of breeding difficulty, he would undoubtedly grasp the lifeline of the Soul Society nobles' reproduction. After all, Your Excellency, Madam, wouldn't want your son to not be born smoothly, right? But, how to carry out the research? You can't just randomly catch a young couple and watch and study their gestation process every day, right? That's right. Suddenly, Senju Makoto thought of a person, Kachakibyakuya. Anyway, it is necessary to study how the spirit of Ima can withstand the oppression of high concentration spiritual pressure, so it is also gentle and considerate as a close friend to consider Kachakibyakuya. After all, no matter how abstinent and cold Kachakibyakuya looks, he can't marry an onion head just to please his eyes, but not peel off the onion's coat and work hard to continue the future of the Kachaki family, right? Speaking of which, the gestation of life in the Soul Society is essentially the resonance of two souls, then I wonder if it can be done between spirits of the same sex? What about different races? Have I discovered a bug in the Soul Society? Wait, what kind of messed up assumptions am I thinking of? Senju Makoto shook his head, disdaining this unnecessary thought, and slowly brewed a pot of strong tea for himself, then poured 3 cups and placed them on the table. 1 cup was naturally for himself, and the other 2 cups were for Yulu's Hiru and Senatulu on Xiang. Although Yulu's Hiru and Senatulu on Xiang were only shadows in the outside world, as they had been with him all this time, Senju Makoto would still respect them in such details. The shadows of Yulu's Hiru and Senatulu on Xiang also condensed, and the two soon started their daily meaningless quarrels. In this lively sound that only Senju Cheng could hear, Senju Cheng turned the teacup in his hand while carefully thinking about his plan. In essence, Senju Cheng's sense of crisis and loneliness are quite strong in his character, which is why Senju Cheng chose to join the 4th Division at the beginning, mainly because the mortality rate of the 4th Division was relatively low, and Senju Cheng was more interested in judo and medical skills, and perhaps he could find more common topics with others. In addition, Senju Cheng also wanted to have the opportunity to contact the patients of the entire Jin time, so as to integrate into the forest seed, speed up the accumulation of spiritual pressure, master Bankai as soon as possible, and thus have the initial ability to save his life. As for the greater goals and dreams, in the seemingly peaceful but actually dangerous Soul Society, Senju Cheng did not think too much about it in the past. However, the changes in things slightly exceeded Senju Cheng's expectations. Not only was he accepted as a disciple by Unohana Retsu, but even the zanpakutō, Shinigami actually possessed a deeper level of power. This change made Senju Cheng's plan to master Bankai as soon as possible fall through. Even for Senju Cheng now, the simple accumulation of spiritual pressure cannot really make a qualitative change in his strength. After all, every spirit has an invisible barrier, the barrier of the upper limit of spiritual pressure. Bankai is one of the ways to break this barrier, allowing the spirit of the spirit body to undergo a certain degree of change, so that the spirit body can carry more spiritual power and spiritual pressure. Therefore, Senju Cheng's main goal now is to complete his ultimate spirit body through the forest seed. It's just that Senju Cheng didn't have any specific reference standards to divide the speed of accumulating spiritual pressure through the forest seed in the past. However, today, after successfully integrating the forest seed into Rokuguru Kensei's body, Senju Cheng tried to calculate the changes in the efficiency of accumulating spiritual pressure. Senju Cheng, who closed his eyes and felt for a long time, slowly opened his eyes and secretly converted them in his heart. Assuming that Captain Rokuguru Kensei is the most standard captain-level spiritual pressure unit, then the forest seed in Rokuguru Kensei's body can provide 1 car of spiritual pressure per year, so in 6 years, it is just the right amount for a standard captain-level spiritual pressure unit. As for Kinpachi Zaraki and Yorishi Shiuin, Kinpachi Zaraki provides about 2 cars of spiritual pressure per year, while Yorishi Shiuin provides 1.5 cars per year. The difference is quite obvious. The spiritual pressure provided by the vice captain is about 0.2 cars per year, while the chief officer fluctuates between 0.1 cars. The ordinary Shinigami is negligible compared to the captain-level Shinigami. Now that I add it up, I'm probably still less than 6 cars per year. Thinking of this, Senju Cheng couldn't help but sigh. There is also a gap between the true captains, but Kensei Rokuguru is still not to be underestimated. Of course, the forest seed absorbs unconscious dissipated spiritual pressure. The amount of dissipated spiritual pressure is not only related to the difference in spiritual pressure itself, but also to complex factors such as the talent of each spiritual body, and cannot directly explain the difference in strength. As for today's battle between Kinpachi Zaraki and Kensei Rokuguru Senju paused while turning the teacup, then took a sip of the strong tea, thinking back to Yorishi Shiuin, who had been around from the beginning to the end but had not shown up. Yorishi Shiuin hid very well, but there was no way to conceal the seed that Senju had left in her body, coupled with the timing of Unohana Retsu's appearance, so, perhaps today's battle was a test of Kinpachi Zaraki's true combat power. Let Kensei Rokuguru, who was considered a captain, confirm Kinpachi Zaraki's strength. It's just too strong. Kinpachi Zaraki, who hasn't worn the blindfold yet during this period, seems to be too strong. Kensei Rokuguru, who has just reached his first release, can't even warm up Kinpachi Zaraki. In the future, for the stability of the Seireitei, perhaps the Central 46th Chamber will try to suppress Kinpachi Zaraki by making him wear a blindfold that absorbs spiritual pressure or something like that. Chapter 103. The upcoming contact with Aizen Sosuk. Of course, Senju had no interest in intervening in how the Central 46th Chamber planned to suppress Kinpachi Zaraki. There is no doubt that the monster who pursued fighting wholeheartedly would be considered an unstable factor even if Senju was in the position of the Central 46th Chamber. Now, Senju just replanned the future direction, slightly adjusted the focus, and prepared to start using part of his energy to start medical research on the conception of life and spiritual bodies without spiritual pressure. The next day, Makatao Senju continued to restore his own rhythm of life, regularly went to the gynecology department to work, integrated the cedar forest into the bodies of some ladies whose spiritual pressure reached the standard of the chief officer, and began to collect and organize the information needed for the next research. Makatao Senju's style of doing things is obviously different from that of Aizen Sasuke, the sixth brother. As a pure boy, he prefers to act openly and honestly, hiding some insignificant darkness under the light. Therefore, Makatao Senju did not hide his purpose at all. In addition to asking Byakuya Kachika to help collect information, he even did not forget to ask Unohana Retsu. In addition, Senju Makatao regularly went to Rukongeda with Kachika Byakuya to visit Hyman Rukia. As for Ichimura Jin, Senju Makatao did not go to the Mao Spiritual Academy again, and more importantly, there was no need for it. Because, as long as the bracelet was always on Ichimura Jin's wrist, Senju Makatao would almost always be with Ichimura Jin in a sense. The only thing that made Senju Makatao uncomfortable was that Ichimura Jin still had the bad habit of hiding his hands in his sleeves, and more importantly, Ichimura Jin liked to slowly turn the bracelet on his wrist when he was free. This made Senju Makatao feel like Ichimura Jin often pulled his hair. Sitting in the office, Senju Makatao listened to the symptoms of the plump noble lady in front of him, with a gentle and innocent expression, and the gentle eyes made the noble lady feel like she was bathing in the warm sunshine. The only slightly strange thing was that Dr. Senju occasionally touched his hair, and seemed to be a little uncomfortable. But, it seems that this meaningless action is actually so charming. Unconsciously, the plump noble lady seemed to be lost in some kind of fantasy with her eyes blurred. Senju Cheng pushed his glasses and reminded her. Madam, do you have any other symptoms? Symptoms? Yes, yes. The noble lady gently covered her chest with one hand and said. Chest tightness, chest swelling, and sometimes there is always a feeling of falling, and I often feel that my back and shoulders are very sore, and sometimes there is a feeling of being unable to breathe in the middle of the night. Dr. Senju, am I sick? Is it serious? Senju Cheng's eyes slowly moved down to the part described by the noble lady, using his eyes as a ruler. Holy word, gee. Come on, relax a little, let me feel it. Senju Cheng stood up and walked behind the noble lady, soothing her gently, and then pressed his hands on the noble lady's shoulders and the muscles near the lumbar spine, feeling the tightness of them. Afterwards, he used Judeyo to carefully confirm whether there were other lesions inside the spirit body. After a moment, Senju Cheng, who had come to a conclusion, pushed his glasses and spoke. Madam, it's not a big problem. It's just that the burden on the spirit body is a little heavy. There are two main treatment options. The first one can regularly relieve the spirit body muscles through special massage techniques. The second one, however, before Senju Cheng said that the second option was to reduce the burden, the noble lady seemed to have achieved her goal, her eyes lit up, and she chose without hesitation. Dr. Senju, I choose the first one. Don't you want to consider it? The first one is quite energy-consuming and time-consuming. After all, it is only a temporary solution. The second one is actually more suitable. I need to, no, Dr. Senju, I'll choose the first one. The noble lady said without hesitation. Senju Cheng nodded, and out of respect for the principle of doctor-patient, he did not continue to insist, and spoke instead. In that case, then madam, you can remember this simple technique later, and then ask your husband to massage you regularly when you go back. However, the noble lady seemed to be touched by something sad, and her eyes were filled with tears, and she said with tears in her eyes. Dr. Senju, my husband has been dead for hundreds of years, sorry. Senju Makatao apologized quickly, and then said. Then you can go back and teach the maids. The maids are stupid. I still trouble Dr. Senju. The noble lady gently wiped her tears, looking at Senju Makatao, who seemed to be a little flustered but didn't know how to comfort her. She felt warm in her heart, and a warm current began to flow in her body. Unlike those disgusting guys like Kukushansui, Dr. Senju is really pure and makes people want to get close to him. Then, the noble lady thought of something and spoke. Dr. Kaianshou, how about you give me an injection? Many of my friends said it was good after being injected by Dr. Kaianshou. However, Senju Cheng sensed the strength of the noble lady's spiritual pressure and rejected this time-wasting proposal without hesitation. Instead, he let the noble lady lie on the treatment bed and then skillfully relieved the noble lady's spiritual body muscles. Recently, it seems that there is a trend of increasing number of patients with this kind of disease. Senju Cheng sighed helplessly in his heart, wondering if this was related to the water and soil inside the jingling court. The holy texts were more exaggerated than one another. As Senju Cheng massaged according to the specific changes in the spirit particles in the spirit body, the noble lady soon couldn't help but make a humming sound. Comfortable, it was almost a comfortable massage technique that went straight to the depths of the soul. However, just when the noble lady felt that her brain was gradually going blank and was about to reach a certain peak, Senju Cheng's hands that seemed to have magic suddenly withdrew. "Sorry, I have something to do, madam, please wait a moment," Senju Cheng said hurriedly, leaving the office quickly without giving the noble lady a chance to stay. This scene made the noble lady dazed and confused, and subconsciously thought of one of her lovers, once. That bastard was also so ruthless. Senju Cheng, who left the office, said a perfunctory word to the many patients queuing outside, and then went straight to the toilet. After locking the door of the toilet, Senju Cheng's expression became more solemn. Just now, Senju Cheng clearly heard the voice of Aizen Sosok, and he heard it through the bracelet on Ichimura-jin's wrist. "Finally, I can't hold it back, Aizen Sosok." Senju Cheng's eyes flashed, and then he slowly pulled out the Sinrawonksai band from his waist. He is the honorary chairman of the Shinigami Women's Association. He is the owner of the Orozai in District 38 of West Rukongai. Chapter 104 Aizen and Jin, show it, arrive, transcend it, the ultimate of all things, the root of everything. All things in the universe. As the words of liberation were whispered, most of Senju Cheng's consciousness was also gathered on the bracelet on Ichimura-jin's wrist, and under the ability of spiritual particle control, he transcended the distance limit and began to control the special spirit particles on the bracelet to change their forms rapidly. Soon, a very small eye formed on the side of the bracelet. The eyes turned slowly. Unlike the Soul Society, which was full of spirit particles, the surrounding environment where Senju Cheng's eyes passed was quite scarce. Moreover, the architectural style was different from the ancient Japanese style of the Soul Society. Instead, it seemed like a modern port with steel everywhere. The present world. Although Senju Cheng had also been to the present world a few years ago due to training in virtual and real combat, he also knew that the present world was probably in the process of modern times, and some vinyl records, cameras, record players, etc. began to appear in the Seireitei. P.S. This is not nonsense, but before the holoification incident, a vinyl record appeared in the captain's room of Hirako Mako. Obviously, Ichimura-jin should have appeared in the real world now because of the real-life combat training against the holo. The next moment, as Ichimura-jin slowly turned in one direction, the figure of Aizen Sosok slowly emerged from a shadow corner. At this moment, Aizen Sosok had a smile on his face, but that smile was not as gentle and elegant as usual, but rather seemed to be calm and unhurried. The eyes that made it difficult to distinguish emotions seemed to be looking at something. Ichimura-jin, the genius who released his zanpakutō in Rukongai to help Makoto block the attack of yokais. However, under the light of Senju Makoto, Aizen Sosok completely ignored the existence of Ichimura-jin at the time, as if he focused his eyes on the sun and naturally could not see the faint light emitted by the small firefly. However, after Senju Makoto deliberately contacted Ichimura-jin again at the Mao Spiritual Academy, Aizen Sosok also devoted some energy to pay attention to this genius who had already become famous in the Seireitei. Soon, under the gaze of Aizen Sosok, Ichimura-jin's past was clearly seen by Aizen Sosok, including the existence of Matsumoto Rangiku, and the bond between Ichimura-jin and Matsumoto Rangiku. Looking at Aizen Sosok not far away, Ichimura-jin's eyes almost subconsciously revealed the uncontrollable murderous intent and anger. However, all emotions were almost hidden in his half-closed eyes, without revealing a single bit, and Ichimura-jin's face was still that cold and delusive smile. "Who are you?" "Sosok Aizen, Vice Captain of the 5th Division." "I see. May I ask what can I do for you, Vice Captain Aizen?" Ichimura-jin tilted his head and asked with some confusion. A classmate activated the emergency rescue call. The Shinigami Spiritual Academy judged that an emergency situation had occurred, so the 5th Division was invited to carry out the rescue. "I came here to confirm the situation of Ichimura-jin. If everything is fine, that would be great." As Aizen Sosok spoke, his figure approached Ichimura-jin, and his seemingly calm smile seemed to be getting more and more terrifying. Through the bracelet, Senju Makoto clearly felt Ichimura-jin's nervousness. His hands, which were already clasped in front of his chest and hidden in his sleeves, were tightly grasping his zanpakutō and the divine spear. He seemed to be hesitating whether to release his zanpakutō for a sneak attack. With the speed of the divine spear, at this distance, maybe it will work. However, the next moment, Agent Sosok's voice, which seemed to be full of inquiry, rang out, causing Ichimura-jin's pupils to shrink, and his hands and feet to feel cold. Ichimura-jin, I heard that you have a good relationship with Makoto, right? Jin Ichimura. This man, is he threatening me? If he can't be killed with one strike, he might even include Dr. Senju in his revenge. If before, Jin Ichimura didn't understand the position of the vice-captain of the 5th Division, the horror of secretly controlling Cheng-ge's, and the taboo of secretly depriving souls, as Jin Ichimura entered the Mao Spiritual Academy, he gradually understood a lot of common sense about the god of death. He has completely understood how terrifying Agent Sosok is. Once Dr. Senju is targeted by Agent Sosok, Jin Ichimura's hand holding his zanpakutō sacred spear trembled slightly. For Jin Ichimura, his own life is simply not important, but he doesn't want to implicate Dr. Senju. For a while, all kinds of memories about Makoto Senju emerged in Jin Ichimura's mind. Conveying the most gentle heart in the worst tone, in order to protect himself and Rain Jaiku, he faced a Cheng-ge alone to delay time. Although he was almost killed by a Cheng-ge because of me, he didn't blame me afterwards. He even came to visit me and Rain Jaiku with a gentle expression and brought delicious food, and left a sum of money. From the mouth of Ayahakiko, I learned that Dr. Senju was just an ordinary Shinigami who had just joined the GOTY 13. His monthly salary was only 6,000 rings, but he left 10,000 rings for me and Rain Jaiku. He didn't forget the day when I planned to join the Shinigami Spiritual Academy, and gave me a precious gift. Jin Ichimura slowly loosened his hand holding the zanpakutō god spear, and subconsciously turned the bracelet on his wrist. Before we are completely sure whether it is to retrieve Rain Jaiku's soul or to protect Dr. Senju from persecution, we must not act rashly. Jin Ichimura's thoughts turned rapidly, and his face was unpredictable. Well, Senju Makoto. Just a doctor who is like a good guy. We can't say that we have a good relationship. Really? Agent Sosok pushed his glasses, looked down at Ichimura-jin who was so close in front of him, and spoke slowly. But I heard that Makoto-kun also treated Matsumoto Rain Jaiku. Is it really appropriate to evaluate your benefactor so coldly? Hearing that important name, Ichimura-jin's pupils hidden under his eyelids shrank, and the smile on his face widened a little more, and said, "There's nothing I can do." After anyone has seen the amazing power of Cheng-ge's, it would be difficult for them to be moved by such trivial matters. Ichimura-jin, this won't do. If you indulge in the pursuit of power, you will eventually be completely swallowed up by power. Agent Sosok said. Huh. Vice Captain Aizen, are you going to teach me? Ichimura-jin asked back. The next moment, Agent Sosok slowly drew out his zanpakutō, and swung it in the direction of Ichimura-jin, the blade passing through the hair on top of Ichimura-jin's head. Roar behind Ichimura-jin, an Cheng-ge emitting terrifying spiritual pressure suddenly appeared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 105. Mirror Flower and Water Moon. However, in just a moment, the Cheng-ge was chopped into 2 pieces, and with an unbelievable wail, it was decomposed into spirit particles and quickly dissipated. From beginning to end, facing Agent Sosok's swinging sword, Ichimura-jin did not move at all, and his expression did not change at all. Aren't you afraid? That's an Cheng-ge that shouldn't be here, Agent Sosok asked. In this short moment, Ichimura-jin has sorted out his thoughts based on the known situation. Agent Sosok knows the relationship between Matsumoto Rain Jaiku and himself, so it is very likely that Agent Sosok has guessed that he has witnessed the process of him taking away Matsumoto Rain Jaiku's soul. Therefore, Agent Sosok is likely to appear this time to solve this hidden danger of his own. There is only one way to survive and achieve the goal. Almost instantly, Ichimura-jin discarded his past decision to become a god of death, and then looked for an opportunity to directly assassinate Agent Sosok. To gain the trust of Agent Sosok, find out Agent Sosok's trump card, and then bite like a poisonous snake to deliver a fatal blow. This is the power I desire and pursue, Lord Aizen. Ichimura-jin slowly opened his eyes a little, and his eyes seemed to reveal a kind of fanaticism. Lord Aizen, please allow me to follow you. Oh? Agent Sosok made a tone without comment, and then seemed to have obtained some answers he wanted. After returning the zanpakutō to the scabbard, he turned his back to Ichimura-jin and slowly left without any defense. In this case, then show your value of following me. Yes, Lord Aizen. On the other side, in the toilet inside the 4th Division's barracks, Senju Makatao controlled the bracelet to return to its original state and slowly touched the Shikai of Sinra Wonksaiang. Then, Senju Makatao let out a long breath and said expressionlessly, Kyuka got hit. Yes, Senju Makatao was very sure that both Ichimura-jin and himself had been hit by Aizen Sosok's zanpakutō, Kyuka ability complete hypnosis. That Cheng-ge's was fake. Although there was no flaw or incongruity in its figure, posture, spiritual pressure, and wailing, the process of Cheng-ge's dispersing into spirit particles after death was full of loopholes for Senju Makatao, who could distinguish spirit particles at the microscopic level. When did he get hit by Kyuka complete hypnosis? Obviously, he didn't see any process of Shikai from beginning to end. The only thing was the process of Aizen Sosok slowly and leisurely drawing his sword. Was that the real process? Senju Makatao's eyes flashed, and he was almost certain of this idea in his heart. Although in his previous life, Aizen Sosok once described himself, as long as you have seen the process of Shikai of Kyuka, you will fall into complete hypnosis. In addition, Aizen Sosok repeatedly emphasized in the original plot that Ichigo Kurosaki was the only top fighter in Soul Society who had not been hit by the Kyuka, and made Ichigo Kurosaki an indispensable existence for Soul Society to defeat him. However, all this was just Aizen Sosok's self-narration. Except for the method of cracking the complete hypnosis ability of Kyuka, which was confirmed by Ichimura-jin with his life, the rest of the information has never been substantive evidence. Therefore, using the most upright mind of a pure boy to measure the mind of an old silver coin, Senju Makatao naturally would not believe that kind of unconfirmed information. Senju Makatao quite suspected that Ichigo Kurosaki had also been hit by Aizen Sosok's Kyuka ability from the beginning to the end, but everyone had an illusion, and Aizen Sosok did not activate his ability against Ichigo Kurosaki. Therefore, instead of not knowing when he fell into the complete hypnosis of Kyuka unknowingly and completely lost the initiative, Senju Makatao chose to take the initiative to fall into the ability of Kyuka when Aizen Sosok contacted Ichimura-jin. Then, Makatao Senju only needs to find an opportunity to crack the complete hypnosis of Kagami through the method that Ryu has also confirmed many times, and he can regain the initiative in the real sense. In addition, what Makatao Senju is also concerned about is that Aizen Sosok mentioned himself in front of Ichimura-jin. What is that man planning? Ichimura-jin, grow up quickly and place him next to Aizen Sosok. When I crack the ability of Kagami, I can really leave an eye next to Aizen Sosok, instead of pinning intelligence on unstable factors such as Ryu. And just as Makatao Senju was still lost in thought, there was a knock on the toilet door in front of him, and some chaotic sounds rang out hurriedly. Dr. Kaihanshou, are you okay? Why haven't you come out for so long? Did something happen to Dr. Kaihanshou in there? Dr. Kaihanshou, if you're in there, make a sound. That's right, Dr. Kaihanshou. If you don't make a sound, we're going to go in the next moment. The toilet doors opened directly. Cheng looked at the faces of women in front of him with different styles, and subconsciously retreated tactically. Of these women, most of whom are noble ladies, sick. No, that's not right. It should be said that they really have problems, which is better, and I can still treat them. The fear is that they are just looking for trouble. However, as a doctor's basic ethics, you must have sufficient patience and abundant energy to treat patients. If you drive them all away at once, if there is really a sick person inside, it will not be good. So, Cheng took a deep breath, smiled innocently, and said a little embarrassedly, Sorry, I made you worry. Then, without waiting for the female nobles to say anything, Senju Makatao went back to the office, and then saw the noble lady lying on the treatment bed. Her gorgeous clothes looked messy and made others imagine. However, the eyes of this noble lady of St. Wurji looked at Senju Makatao with a bit more resentment. Dr. Senju, is it? I am so unattractive. The noble lady blinked slightly, and her fingers slid elegantly from the side of her thigh along the amazing curve of her waist to her face, with a look of pity and self-sigh, and said, Or am I old? However, under the gaze of the noble lady, Senju Makatao's eyes were still as clear as water and as gentle as the breeze caressing his face from beginning to end. Then, Senju Makatao smiled innocently, scratched his head in confusion, and asked, Madam, what do you mean? I don't quite understand. Chapter 106 The Beauty of Microscopic Spirit Particles. At this moment, the noble lady was stunned. In the gentle and pure smile of Senju Cheng, which was like the morning sun, she felt inexplicably ashamed of herself, as if she had returned to the childhood sweethearts and first love, and a face that had gradually blurred over the years became clear again. However, that face was subconsciously replaced with the appearance of Senju Cheng. What am I doing? The noble lady bit her lower lip and said secretly with self-blame and shame. What did I think of Dr. Senju? How could I say such shameless and obscene words in front of Dr. Senju? This is undoubtedly an insult to Dr. Senju. Then, the noble lady quickly straightened her posture and pulled her already extremely rude clothes. As an experienced driver, the noble lady was a little nervous and ashamed at this moment. I'm sorry, Dr. Cheng. I just accidentally felt a little sentimental. I see. Senju Cheng stepped forward and continued to relax the muscles of the noble lady's spirit body, speaking in a gentle tone like the spring breeze. Madam, the past is gone, and being too concerned will also have an impact on your body. Why don't you look at the distance and sunshine tomorrow? The noble lady, who was lying on the treatment bed with her back to Senju Cheng, responded with a ruddy face. Yes, Dr. Cheng. Soon, as the massage ended, the noble lady, who had been acting quite experienced before, actually felt a little more restrained, and even inadvertently seemed to have a little more girlish attitude when saying goodbye to Senju Cheng. Dr. Cheng, thank you, I feel much better. Well, that's good, and don't forget to pay the fee. It's just that the fee may be a little expensive. It's okay, I'll give you whatever Dr. Cheng wants. Suddenly, the noble lady realized that she seemed to be too excited, and she was a little embarrassed and almost lowered her head into the holy word G, explaining. No, what I mean is, if it's Dr. Cheng, any amount of money is worth it. Yes, I will look forward to meeting Dr. Cheng again. Then, the noble lady, who was like an old driver, hurried away as if the engine was leaking water, and the whole person was a little stuck. As for the noble lady's statement, Senju Cheng actually quite agreed. Massage techniques, in fact, it is not a high-level skill, but Senju Cheng can intuitively adjust the subtle strength and movements according to the spirit particles in each spirit body, and can almost achieve the most perfect effect. Therefore, Senju Cheng's fees will naturally be a little more expensive, which is reasonable. As for the noble lady asking about her charm, Senju Cheng did not really mean it. In order to avoid hurting the patient, Senju Cheng did not express his inner feelings. Perhaps, from the microscopic perspective of the spirit body, the noble lady of Senju Cheng is almost a treasure of chaos, but Senju Cheng can distinguish the microscopic world of spirit particles in his sight. Just like the common sense that different positions will naturally lead to different buttocks, after Senju Cheng looked directly at the microscopic world of spirit particles for a long time, his aesthetics naturally deviated subtly. The microscopic perspective of the spirit body is no longer the only criterion for judging beauty. The internal spirit particle structure, quality, order, etc. are the real beauty. And that noble lady, in addition to a large number of unnecessary, invalid and useless spirit particles piled up in her chest, the rest of the spirit body spirit particles in Senju Cheng's eyes have no aesthetic feeling at all. It can even be called terrible. No wonder the noble lady's spiritual pressure is only the level. Even if she sows seeds, it is a waste. In this regard, even Bishoya is much more attractive than the noble lady. Of course, the most beautiful existence in the structure, quality, and order of the spirit particles in the spirit body that Makao Senju has seen so far is undoubtedly his gentle and elegant Unohana teacher. Whether it is the macroscopic perspective of the spirit body or the microscopic perspective of the spirit particles, Unohana teacher is almost impeccable. Thinking of this, Makao Senju's fingers that were recording the case of the noble lady could not help but pause, and his eyes became a little blurred. However, another figure gradually emerged in Makao Senju's mind, that was Aizen Sosok, whose spirit body's spirit particle structure and order were more perfect and of great medical research value. And Aizen Sosok, who was being thought about by Makao Senju at this moment, led the team to complete the rescue mission perfectly and returned to the Seireitei. After creating the illusion that he had returned to the 5th Division's barracks to handle official business through the Mirror Flower and Water Moon, Aizen Sosok hurried to an underground research space. Various equipments are densely packed in it, which are no less than those of the Technology Development Bureau, which was established just a few years ago, and a large number of them are still running autonomously, as if calculating some data. Agent Sasuke did not hesitate at all, and went straight to the side to classify and store the separated power of the god of death. Perhaps, to be more precise, it is the part of the soul lost by a large number of residents of Cheng-ge. Soon, Agent Sasuke stopped in front of one of the power of the god of death. Part of the soul of Matsumoto Rangiku. When the soul of Matsumoto Rangiku was stripped, Agent Sasuke sensed a trace of some special fluctuations. Because he had not had time to study it, it has been specially preserved until now. In order to cross the upper limit of the god of death, Agent Sasuke specially collected souls with the power of the god of death for experiments and created a special substance. However, the prototype of the substance formed by hundreds of souls is still quite unstable, not to mention complete perfection and formation. It lacks the core that serves as an anchor to stabilize the material. This is the conclusion that Agent Sasuke has drawn from his research during this period, and he is worried about how to solve this problem. Today's contact with Ichimura Jin and Senju Makoto's attention gave Agent Sasuke an intuition. Ichimura Jin should not be worthy of Makoto-kun's attention. So, did Makoto-kun notice something in Matsumoto Rangiku, so he paid special attention to Ichimura Jin? As for whether Senju Makoto is purely kind, Agent Sasuke sneered. Just as humans would not pay attention to mere ants, Agent Sasuke also did not think that Senju Makoto would pay attention to Ichimura Jin for no reason. The only two people who are truly equal in this world are Makoto-kun and himself. So, Agent Sasuke's glasses reflected the faint blue light of Matsumoto Rangiku's soul, and his eyes were more inquisitive. Perhaps, the anchor point I need is hidden in it. Chapter 107 April 21st. As Agent Sasuke focused his attention on the lost soul of Matsumoto Rangiku and began to study it. Although Agent Sasuke's pure research ability is inferior to Urahara Kisuke and Kurosaki Mayuri, who are Shinigami who make this their profession. After all, for Agent Sasuke, research is just one of the means to achieve his goal. But with Agent Sasuke's brain, he still quickly found the thing hidden in Matsumoto Rangiku's soul. Agent Sasuke looked down at the strange fingertips floating above Matsumoto Rangiku's soul in front of him, and quickly confirmed its nature. The fingertips of the Soul King. It's really something unexpected. It's really sad that the Soul King who created the three realms was dismembered by the four nobles. And his fingertips can only be entrusted to the souls of the residents of Cheng-ge. Is Makoto's goal also to seize the Soul King's fingertips through Ichimura Jin? Agent Sasuke's eyes flickered, and then he held up a hand, bound the Soul King's fingertips with his spiritual pressure, and brought it to his eyes. If I give it to Makoto, Makoto might be happy. No, Makoto isn't equal to me, and I shouldn't look down on him. But Makoto plans to take this thing from me with just Ichimura Jin. Which is a bit too much of an underestimation of me. Wait. Did I misunderstand something? Agent Sasuke's brows rarely frowned, and an absurd thought flashed through his mind. No. It's too arrogant to just rely on guesses. This matter, I have to confirm it myself no matter what. With this thought, Agent Sasuke no longer hesitated, and prepared to use the Soul King's fingertips as an anchor to stabilize the core of the strange substance and further improve his plan. But Agent Sasuke didn't know that the process of his research on the substance that he had not yet officially named Hinyu was monitored by Ulysses almost all the time. Ulysses chose to exchange this information without hesitation in exchange for 3 hours of extra chat time. Even in the language of Senju Makoto, Ulysses inadvertently revealed Urahara Kisuke's information about the Hinyu. In this case, Agent Sasuke and Urahara Kisuke's Hinyu have already completed the preliminary work, which means that the holoization event that will reduce the captain-level combat power of the Seireitei by nearly half is about to begin. Under the night sky, Senju Makoto, who was practicing flower arrangement in the courtyard of the Kuchiki family, thought secretly. Will I be one of the holoification test subjects prepared by Agent Sasuke? Although Senju Makoto knew that if he became a test subject in the holoification experiment planned by Agent Sasuke and survived, he would undoubtedly significantly improve his combat power. However, the price of having to escape from Soul Society was unacceptable to Senju Makoto. In that case, Senju Makoto would not be able to find more targets suitable for integrating forest seeds in the real world, and completing his ultimate spirit body would become a distant prospect. As for choosing to go to Hutomundo at the time, it would undoubtedly be a useless choice. A Shinigami going to Hutomundo alone, where countless hollows exist, would be as outrageous as throwing a strong man into the land of women. What's more, the environment in Hutomundo is many times worse than that in Soul Society, and hollows are constantly fighting and devouring each other. Even if Senju Makoto forcibly integrates the forest seeds into the hollow, it may not take long for that hollow to die at the hands of other hollows. Therefore, the Soul Society, with its relatively stable and comfortable environment, is of irreplaceable importance to Makoto Senju. Just as the West cannot lose Jerusalem, Makoto Senju cannot lose Soul Society either. Therefore, after confirming that he was being targeted by Aizen Sosok, Makoto Senju was most worried about being used as an important hollow experiment by Aizen Sosok. At this moment, a rather stern voice rang in Makoto Senju's ears. Failed work. Makoto Senju looked down and found that he had accidentally broken an important branch, causing the entire flower arrangement in his hand to look a little out of place. The flower arrangement teacher, who had a grey beard but was dressed very elegantly, said sternly, Dr. Senju, flower arrangement requires a peaceful state of mind to feel the beauty. Sorry, my mind was confused just now. Makoto Senju said truthfully. Well, in that case, let's stop here today. The flower arrangement teacher said. Yes. Just as Makoto Senju was about to leave, the flower arrangement teacher suddenly spoke. Dr. Senju, flower arrangement is not a physical art. Floating on the surface is an extremely superficial cognition. What we should pursue is metaphysical expression, controlling the inner will and emotions with a peaceful state of mind, and expressing them in the artistic form of flower arrangement. After saying this, the flower arrangement teacher, who was very decisive in both his actions and words, left directly, leaving Senju Makoto, who was lost in thought. The reason why Senju Makoto specially learned flower arrangement was that Unohana loved flower arrangement and often held a flower arrangement meeting every month. However, Senju Makoto only had a superficial understanding of these overly elegant things. And since becoming Unohana disciple, he has been deeply cared for by Unohana in various ways. Senju Makoto intended to give Unohana a gift, so he had the idea of learning flower arrangement. Expressing the inner will and emotions. Senju Makoto murmured, and Senju Makoto, who had been hovering at the entry stage of flower arrangement, had some enlightenment. Then, Makoto Senju said goodbye to the owners of the courtyard, Byakuya Kachike and Sojin Kachike, and then left the courtyard of the Kachike family. However, just as Makoto Senju left the gate of the Kachike family, a secret mobile team member wrapped in black suddenly appeared in front of Makoto Senju and handed him an invitation. Dr. Senju, this is the name inheritance ceremony of the head of the B family. As a friend of Miss Byakuya, please be sure to attend. Makoto Senju's face straightened, took the invitation, and solemnly agreed. I will definitely be there. Makoto Senju replied. Thank you very much. As the secret mobile team member left, Makoto Senju opened the invitation in his hand, and a pair of clear and elegant small words appeared in front of Makoto Senju. It turned out to be an invitation written by Byakuya herself. No wonder Byakuya has been missing for some time. Is she preparing for this? Makoto Senju murmured, and his eyes swept to the date written at the end of the invitation. April 21st. Suddenly, Senju Makoto's eyes slowly opened wide, and his whole body felt numb. That day was also Unohana birthday. Chapter 108 Birthday Party. Senju Makoto. How could it be such a coincidence? What to do? Which one to attend? For a moment, Senju Makoto, who was standing there in a daze, began to struggle with his mind. Makoto holding a Hoshiko. The inheritance ceremony of the name of the head of the B family is undoubtedly extremely important to Waya Hoshiko. It only happens once in a lifetime. Unohana teacher's birthday will be held every year, Makoto holding Unohana. But, that is the important Unohana teacher. Makoto holding a Hoshiko. I have just agreed to it. Breaking the contract is undoubtedly not the way a man should act. Unohana teacher has not invited me to the birthday party yet, Makoto holding Unohana. But, that is the beautiful Unohana teacher. Makoto holding a Hoshiko. This invitation was written by Ai Hoshiko herself. Do you want to disappoint the sincere invitation of a pure girl? It's okay. The gentle Unohana teacher will understand. Makoto holding Unohana. Don't forget, that was also the scary Unohana teacher. Makoto holding a Hoshiko. How can a man succumb to the tyranny of Unohana? Makoto holding Unohana. A man who can bend and stretch is a real man. However, for Makoto Senju, this is undoubtedly an extremely difficult choice. He thought about it back and forth until his forehead was sweating, and he couldn't come up with an answer for a long time. At this moment, Makoto Senju only hated that he didn't have any ability similar to the shadow clone. Otherwise, let alone Ihoshiko and Unohana-retsu, even if the women of the entire village stood shoulder to shoulder, what would Makoto Senju fear? Finally, when Makoto Senju returned to Unohana-retsu's courtyard with a tangled face, he tentatively asked Unohana-retsu, "Teacher, I heard that your birthday seems to be coming soon. Will there be a big party at the time?" "Of course," Unohana-retsu smiled gently and said. "Makoto has been my disciple for almost a year. It will be a good time to introduce him to everyone." Upon hearing this, Makoto Senju subconsciously made a tactical retreat. "Why? Makoto, you don't want to?" Unohana-retsu asked somewhat unexpectedly. "Of course not, I'm just worried that I'll lose face for the teacher," Makoto Senju said nervously. "Don't worry, Makoto, the teacher believes that you won't do anything that will disappoint the teacher," Unohana-retsu said gently. However, Unohana-retsu's gentle words, which seemed to be encouragement and support, sounded almost like a threat to Makoto Senju. However, Makoto Senju also understood that as the only good friend of Ihoshino, if he could not be there on that important day, it might become a regret that Ihoshino could not make up for in her life. How about challenging the degree of softness of Unohana teacher? Maybe he would not die if he bullied the teacher once in a while. However, looking at Unohana-retsu's gentle appearance, Senju Makoto did not have the courage to directly propose not to attend Unohana-retsu's birthday party, but to attend the title inheritance ceremony of the head of the bead family of Ihoshiko. While Senju Makoto was struggling, time passed almost quickly, and soon it was April 21st. As night fell, almost all departments of the entire 4th Division got off work early, and then went to a square in the 4th Division's dormitory. Because there were too many people in the 4th Division, the courtyard of Unohana-retsu alone was not enough to accommodate them, so the birthday party was moved to the square. At this moment, the entire square was almost filled with a warm atmosphere. As the vice-captain of the 4th Division, Yamada-san is and Unohana-retsu's disciple, Senju Makoto, were also busy with various matters regarding this birthday party. In addition to all the food and drink expenses, various kinds of entertainment were also organized. With the participation of a large number of members of the 4th Division and many guests from other divisions, the scene was extremely lively. After all, perhaps ordinary members of the 4th Division are often despised by other divisions in the GOTY 13, but Unohana-retsu's reputation and popularity are among the best in the entire GOTY 13. On this day, Unohana-retsu rarely changed out of his usual slightly bloated Shinigami uniform and put on a solemn and luxurious outfit, which not only fully highlighted Unohana-retsu's figure, but also made his temperament more beautiful and elegant. Among them, many captain-level guests were present, and Unohana-retsu personally brought Senju Makoto to receive them, and deliberately introduced Senju Makoto to many captains. This is the captain of the 3rd Division, Fenj Kaolujira, and this is the captain of the 5th Division, Hirako Mako. Haha, Dr. Senju, I saw him in Rukongeda last time. Who knows, he might be better than you in time. Captain Unohana really has a good disciple. Senju Makoto completely acted like a well-behaved disciple, nodding his head repeatedly, but his eyes subconsciously stayed on Aizen Sasuke, who was standing behind Hirako Mako for a moment. Aizen Sasuke also pushed his glasses and took the initiative to raise his hand to greet Senju Makoto. Senju Makoto nodded politely in response, and then hurriedly followed Unohana-retsu to continue to receive the other captains. This is the captain of the 9th Division, wrote Guru Mei-kensei. No need to bother Captain Unohana to introduce him, Dr. Senju saved my life last time. Wrote Guru Mei-kensei patted Senju Makoto's shoulder generously, and then said with a somewhat embarrassed expression, Dr. Senju treated me very well last time, but I will try not to treat me next time. That kind of rough treatment method always makes me feel weird. Senju Makoto said confidently. Well, I didn't have the right medical equipment at the time. I promise to be very standard next time, wrote Guru Mei-kensei. After that, the 6th Division's Kachika Jinrin, the 7th Division's Captain Ikawaradu, and the 8th Division's Captain Kikushansui also arrived. After Unohana-retsu introduced them one by one to Senju Makoto, Kikushansui, who looked almost the same as a wretched uncle, directly handed Unohana-retsu 3 gifts and said, Senior, your outfit today is really charming. You are worthy of being a famous beauty in the Seireitei. However, as Unohana-retsu's gentle eyes seemed to have a more dangerous meaning, Kikushansui's expression became serious and said seriously, Please accept these small gifts. One of them was brought here by the old man. Yukitiku wanted to come over to have some fun, but he suddenly felt unwell again. Unohana naturally wouldn't mind such a small matter. He gestured to Senju Makoto to take the gift and thanked Kakushansui. Kachika Jinrin of the 6th Division also handed over 3 gifts and explained in a serious manner. Today is the succession ceremony for the head of the Bead family, the followers of the Shifunjin family. So Captain Shifunjin and Captain Urazno both went to participate in the succession ceremony for the head of the Bead family. So I asked me to prepare a gift for them and give it to Captain Unohana. Chapter 109 Butsuya Flower Arrangement. I see. Unohana said gently, but it made Senju Makoto beside him jump in his heart. Fortunately, Unohana did not seem to have the idea of asking further questions, but thanked many captains for their kindness. It must be said that Unohana face was so great that almost half of the captains of the entire GOTY 13 gathered because of this. Even the few who did not participate in person asked others to bring gifts. Except Kinpachi's racket. I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional. Senju Makoto, who had been beside Unohana listened to the conversation of the captains and always felt that they seemed to tacitly avoid the topic of the 11th Division. Perhaps, Kinpachi's racket, who was still unrestrained at this time, was almost the same as a beast who only knew how to seek a fight in the eyes of many captains. As the atmosphere gradually improved and the captains were talking quite enthusiastically, Hirako Makoto came directly to Senju Makoto's side, and asked with a wink, like a familiar face. Hey, Dr. Senju, I heard that you planned this birthday party. Wait a minute, are there any interesting programs or arrangements? Senju Makoto scratched his head in embarrassment and said. Captain Hirako, what programs are you looking forward to? For example, there are so many cute girls in the 4th Division, how about taking the opportunity to hold a blind date meeting? Hirako Makoto suggested with a smile. Think about it, Captain Unohana seems to have been single for more than 1,000 years. Maybe she is planning to find someone she likes at this birthday party. If Captain Unohana really finds someone, she may choose to retire soon. At the time, wouldn't the captain of the 4th Division be inherited by you naturally? Senju Makoto looked at Hirako Makoto in shock. How can a warm mouth of 37 degrees say such cold and stuffy words? Do you really think I am a pure boy who knows nothing? It's obvious that you wanted to take the opportunity to flirt with cute girls openly, but you were worried that Unohana-sensei would remember you, so you wanted to push me to the front and take the blame. You're really not worried that I'll be killed by Unohana-sensei by tricking me like this? However, before Senju Makoto could say no, Aiden Sosek, who was following behind Hirako Makoto, spoke first. Captain Hirako, please don't make such a suggestion that makes Makoto-kun embarrassed. What? I'm also thinking about Dr. Senju. Hirako Makoto said shamelessly. On the contrary, Aiden, which side are you on? However, Aiden Sosek didn't give Hirako Makoto face at all, but instead spoke to Senju Makoto with a bit of apology as a conscientious and fair vice captain. I'm sorry, Makoto-kun, Captain Hirako is a little drunk today, please don't mind those nonsense. Hey, Aiden, what nonsense are you talking about? I haven't started drinking yet. Hirako Makoto said dissatisfiedly. However, Aiden Sosek directly pulled Hirako Makoto away, and did not forget to remind her. Today, many captains are here. Captain Hirako, please do not do anything that will damage the reputation of the 5th Division. You don't need to remind me, Aiden. As Hirako Makoto and Aiden Sosek left, Senju Makoto breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the plan that Senju Makoto prepared for today was quite urgent. He had to fight on 2 fronts and had no time to talk nonsense with Hirako Makoto. Then, at Senju Makoto's signal, the flower arrangement event, one of the activities of this birthday party, began. What was unexpected to Unohana was that Senju Makoto, who had never participated in the flower arrangement event held within the 4th Division in the past, stood up and participated in it this time. Makoto, do you like flower arrangement too? Unohana asked with some surprise. Senju Makoto blinked at Unohana but did not answer the question directly, and it was not suitable to answer in public. Often, when you like something, it is not because you like it, but because you like someone. Teacher, I want to try. Senju Makoto said modestly. Well, come on, but this time I will not participate, but will be the judge with many captains to evaluate whose work is excellent. Unohana said gently to encourage. Senju Makoto nodded, and then he and the other Shinigami participating in the flower arrangement meeting selected a variety of flowers placed in a corner. Flower arrangement. The simplest summary is to arrange flowers in different containers to form a shape. It is just like the art of tea ceremony, dance, painting, etc. If some simple things are given spiritual sustenance and expression, then the meaning and value contained are often completely different. However, unlike the other Shinigami who slowly combined the various flowers they selected, Senju Cheng only chose a bunch of dessert, and then returned to his position. This scene also made the expressions of the Shinigami watching around a little weird. Even if flower arrangement is sometimes about letting things flow and simplicity, if you just picked a bunch of Seireitei and put it in a vase, can it really be called flower arrangement? Isn't this too much of a waste of bean curd? Isn't this just like casually drawing a stroke on a scroll and claiming to be a master of painting? Seeing this, Aokiriza, who also participated in the flower arrangement meeting, looked at the captains around who seemed to be paying attention to Senju Cheng, and gritted her teeth and sat down next to Senju Cheng, and then reminded him in a low voice. Cheng, you have too few flowers, go and choose some more. Senju Cheng smiled gently at Aokiriza, then looked at the Seireitei in his hand and said softly, "No, as for flowers, only Seireitei is enough." "Are you sure?" Aokiriza, who couldn't bear to see Senju Cheng embarrassed, continued to speak in a low voice. "But if there is only one kind of flower material, it will be too monotonous and may not be recognized as a real flower arrangement." "Don't worry." Senju Cheng nodded to Aokiriza and said confidently, "For me, this is enough for the real flower material." Seeing Senju Cheng insisting so much, Aokiriza noticed that there were more and more Shinigami here, so she gave up the idea of persuading him. "Maybe Cheng has some plan." Aokiriza looked at Senju Cheng's handsome and serious profile, and always felt her heart beating, and inexplicably developed confidence in Senju Cheng. More importantly, based on Aokiriza's understanding of Senju Cheng is definitely not the kind of arrogant person. Cheng's confidence is quite trustworthy and reliable. Chapter 110. Forest and Desmos. Then, Senju Cheng turned his attention back to the bunch of Ditsuya in front of him, and recalled all the information about Ditsuya in his mind. Ditsuya has dense flowers, the color is as white as snow, and it is extremely beautiful and elegant when it blooms. It is also called Malflower. The flower language is loyalty and trust. This is also that flower material that Senju Cheng loves most when he has been learning flower arrangement for the past 6 months, and it is also that flower material that can best express his inner mood. Of course, what Aokiriza said is right. From the perspective of flower arrangement alone, a bunch of Ditsuya as a flower material is undoubtedly too monotonous. But in Senju Cheng's opinion, among the works he prepared, a bunch of Ditsuya is enough, and the rest of the prosperity is not loved. If it is too monotonous and needs company, then, as Senju Cheng slowly released his zanpakutō, the grass extended about 1 meter around himself. Then, several green grasses slowly grew and reached into the porcelain vase with the Seireitei inserted in it. This scene also made Unohana, who was originally talking to the other captains in a gentle and peaceful tone, pause and look in the direction of Senju Cheng. As one of the most famous flower arranging masters in the Seireitei, Unohana naturally knew all the information related to Seireitei, and the flower language and nicknames contained in it were also very clear. So even though Senju Cheng's work had just begun, Unohana had already vaguely felt the artistic conception that Senju Cheng wanted to express and the pure and passionate emotion. "Cheng, you won't." Unohana stared at Senju Cheng's actions in a daze, and his own emotional management that had been maintained for thousands of years, had a tendency to get out of control. However, in the eyes of the other captains who were not very good at flower arranging, they were more of a fun watch. "Hey, is that Dr. Senju's zanpakutō ability? It is said that in addition to healing, it can also form wood and other things to attack. It seems to be a very good ability. It feels a bit similar to the former captain of the 12th Division, Seireitei. However, is Dr. Senju planning to use the ability of zanpakutō to create flower arrangements? It seems interesting." Of course, among the captains, the two unruly captains, Shinsuikaku and Mako Hirako, who got together, almost completely focused on the other female Shinigami, constantly making comments in secret. "Yeah, there are really quite a lot of cute girls in the 4th Division, isn't it, Captain Kaku?" "I think so too, I really want to live here for a long time." Captain Hirako, cough cough, "Forget this idea, the senior will be angry." Cheng Senju, who had completely blocked out the interference around him and immersed himself in his own state of mind, was concentrating on his own flower arrangement creation. The extended green grass floated at the mouth of the bottle for a while, then, it firmly and slowly probed deep into the mouth of the bottle. Perhaps others could not know, but Senju Cheng could clearly feel every subtle texture of the bunch of ditsia flowers, and then slowly climbed and entangled. The length of each green grass and the degree of entanglement with the ditsia flowers were different. In the end, the green grass reached the roots of the ditsia flowers, and completely connected with the ditsia flowers with the ability of spiritual control. The next moment, as the spirit began to exchange from the green grass to the ditsia flowers, this bunch of ditsia flowers, which had been picked and placed for thousands of seconds, although still beautiful and elegant, but inevitably began to wither, seemed to be remoistened, and glowed with a brand new vitality and beauty. Success! Senju Cheng couldn't help but bloom a pure smile on his face. Although Senju Cheng had secretly used a lot of flowers to practice for this moment, it was undoubtedly worth joy and excitement to be able to succeed in one go. Then, the next thing is, as the inner part of the green grass has been completely connected with the ditsia, forming an internal harmony and unity, the remaining is the problem of external style and posture. With the movement of Senju Cheng's mind, the green grass that has been completely implanted in the vase began to extend upwards, forming a unique pattern and posture that cannot be formed by normal techniques, completely protecting the bunch of ditsia in the middle. Done. Senju Cheng cancelled the release of his zanpakutō, Synopsis, and looked at the flower arrangement in front of him with an extremely satisfied look on his face. Although Senju Cheng did not modify the whole bunch of ditsia at all, and even let this bunch of seemingly beautiful and elegant ditsia retain some natural burrs and flaws in some details, Senju Cheng thought that this was enough. The completely natural and uncut ditsia is the perfect flower material that Senju Cheng expected. At the same time, perhaps this is not the most perfect work, but it is undoubtedly the work that Senju Cheng can best express his inner state of mind. Then, without waiting for the other Shinigami to finish their work, Senju Cheng placed the vase in front of Senbon and said, "Teacher, I have nothing, so I can only give you this flower arrangement as a gift." Gift. Senbon looked at the flower arrangement in front of him tenderly and asked, "Makao, what's its name?" Senju Cheng pondered for a moment, and then spoke with an idea. "Teacher, how about calling it Forest and Water?" Senbon held up the forest and water carefully with both hands as if it were a rare treasure, and while looking at every detail of it, he suddenly thought of something and sighed with a sad look. "Makao, it's a pity that no matter how perfect the flower arrangement is, it will eventually disappear like life." "No, teacher," Senju Cheng rarely interrupted Senbon's feelings and explained. "Teacher, a considerable part of forest and water is made up of my zanpakutō's ability, and it is also completely connected to the root of the water flower, so, in a sense, as long as I am not dead, then forest and water will always exist unchanged." Senbon's eyes fluctuated violently, as if some emotions in the deepest part of his heart were deeply touched. Flower arrangement is one of the artistic images that express the inner state of mind. Senbon's eyes can almost instantly distinguish the superficial flower arrangement works, but forest and water, Senbon only felt emotions that were difficult to read at the moment. Although Senju Cheng did not really say anything directly, some of his thoughts were truly conveyed to Senbon's heart in this way. Chapter 111 Mao's Panic. The only flower material is ditsia adoratia and rahana adoratia. If the ditsia adoratia alone is too monotonous, then use your own abilities to blend, set off, and accompany it. And the various patterns and postures formed by the green grass all reveal the intention of protecting, loving, and maintaining the ditsia adoratia in the center. Even the roots of the green grass and the ditsia adoratia are connected together to keep the ditsia adoratia from withering over time. Stupid disciple, you actually thought of this method, unconsciously. Senbon, who gently stroked forest and ditsia with one hand, had a rosier face. If the other death gods who were good at flower arrangement saw this work, the emotions and meanings contained in it would be almost impossible to conceal and explain. Are you trying to make me disrespectful in public? Stupid disciple, just why? My heart seems to be so happy. It's not a fight. But I feel a real sense of satisfaction, and the sense of being able to feel the meaning of my own existence. Makao, Senbon's eyes, which had always been gentle and calm in the past, seemed to have a different kind of emotion when he looked at Senju Cheng, who was within reach. It was not the impulse to chop off Senju Cheng, nor the hope of training Senju Cheng to get rid of the responsibility as the captain of the 4th Division, nor the sense of protection that came from pity for the weak. It seemed that he just wanted to hug Senju Cheng and feel more closely whether his heart was like the thoughts of Morino Washer. After a full moment, Hanaretsu seemed to have completely recovered his usual gentleness and calmness. He lowered his head and fiddled with Mori no Ashia and said without looking at Senju Makoto. Makoto, I am very satisfied with the gift of forest and water, but it has some flaws. Don't create this kind of flower arrangement in front of others without permission in the future. As Hanaretsu said this, he almost subconsciously panicked. What on earth am I talking about? Such words, why would I say such words? However, facing Hanaretsu's words that seemed to be full of reprimands and dissatisfaction, Senju Makoto smiled, a pure and gentle smile. Because Senju Makoto could see that Hana teacher really liked the gift he gave her, and that was enough. Then, Senju Makoto nodded seriously and said obediently. Teacher, I understand. I will not make flower arrangements without your permission in the future. Hanaretsu heard this and said with a hint of unnaturalness on his face as he lowered his head and fiddled with forest and water. I'm not that strict. If you like flower arrangement, I won't restrict you. It's just that you can't create this kind of flower arrangement at will in the future. Yes, teacher, the exchange between Hanaretsu and Senju Makoto also attracted the attention of some captains. Some were curious about what kind of work made Hanaretsu seem a little out of control. Among them, Kakushansui, who knew how terrifying Hanaretsu was in the past, couldn't help but come over directly, staring at the Mori and Ashia held in Hanaretsu's arms with wide eyes, and said with a smack of his mouth. This flower arrangement doesn't seem to be anything special, Kakushansui said, while subconsciously reaching out to Mori and Ashia, as if he wanted to touch it to see if there was anything special. However, from Kakushansui's perspective, he suddenly saw Hanaretsu's slightly deflected and terrifying eyes staring at him. Kill you. Kakushansui almost instinctively stopped his movements, without doubting the truth of the murderous intent revealed in Hanaretsu's terrifying eyes. If he had just stretched his hand a little further, Hanaretsu would probably have drawn his sword right then and there. Excuse me. Kakushansui almost without hesitation quickly retreated to 3 meters away from Hanaretsu, and then felt cold sweat all over his back. It's really scary. Did Hana-senpai really intend to kill me just now? Kakushansui still hadn't recovered from the terrifying feeling, and then he couldn't help but look at Senju Makoto with a bit of deep meaning, thinking secretly. It seems that Dr. Senju is much more important to Hana-senpai's mind than I thought. In the past thousands of years, there have been only a few cases where Hana-senpai exposed his murderous intent to someone like this. However, this may not be a good thing. Compared to simple restraint, if you have concerns in your heart, you will not really fall into the state of losing control. As Kakushansui retreated, Hanaretsu stood up with forest and urine in his hand without waiting for the other captains to ask questions, and said elegantly, "Everyone, please excuse me for a moment." After saying that, Hanaretsu walked towards the courtyard with forest and urine, as if he was going to place forest and urine in advance. Senju Makoto, who was just watching this scene, couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He still had to rush to the second half of the event tonight. Who knew how long it would take Hanaretsu to return to the courtyard? This was undoubtedly an unexpected emergency for Senju Makoto's detailed arrangements made in advance. Teacher, wait, Makoto, is there something wrong? Hanaretsu stopped and asked gently. This change also made Kakushansui, who was standing by, deeply feel what it meant to be treated differently. Senju Makoto's eyes wandered towards a certain direction outside the square, and he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. According to the original plan, after Senju Makoto gave the gift, Kachika Byakuya should appear to cooperate with him so that he could have a legitimate reason to temporarily escape. Where is he? At this moment, Kachika Byakuya finally appeared at the edge of the square, and then seemed to be looking for something. After discovering Senju Makoto, he shouted from a distance. Makoto-kun. Senju Makoto, who was standing in front of Hanaretsu, showed a bit of doubt on his face, and then rushed towards Kachika Byakuya with a flash step. From a distance, Hanaretsu watched Senju Makoto and Kachika Byakuya exchange a few words, and both of them seemed a little anxious. Then, Senju Makoto hurried back to Hanaretsu and said meaningfully, "Teacher, I'm sorry, Byakuya has an important friend who needs my help to treat." "It's okay, you go ahead." Hanaretsu nodded, and his gentle smile did not change at all. "Okay, teacher, I'll be back as soon as possible." Senju Cheng responded, then hurriedly left the square with Kachika Byakuya, and Unohana Retsu also turned and headed towards the courtyard. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 112 Real Activities. Outside the square, after leaving the site of many Shinigami, Kachika Byakuya asked Senju Cheng in confusion. "Cheng, you asked me to come to you at this time with such anxiety. Is there any special meaning?" "Nothing, I just want to challenge the speed limit of my instant step." Senju Cheng did not explain too much, perhaps such things would only make things more confusing. Did Senju Cheng declare to Kachika Byakuya, "I'm just a coward in front of Unohana Retsu, and I dare not directly ask Unohana Retsu to witness the important moment of Hachiko during the birthday party"? Could it be that I, Senju Cheng, don't have face in front of Kachika Byakuya? More importantly, perhaps because of some unspeakable thoughts in my heart, Senju Cheng is afraid to show Unohana Retsu that he has a good relationship with other female Shinigami, worried that Unohana Retsu will have some misunderstandings. And now, as long as Senju Cheng's instant step speed is fast enough to run back and forth between the B family courtyard and the 4th Division square in time, all problems will be solved. After all, compared with Senju Cheng's emphasis on Unohana Retsu's birthday party, Senju Cheng only needs to arrive at a certain point to witness the ceremony of Bia's succession to the head of the family and the title of the Bia, and then there will be nothing for Senju Cheng. In the final analysis, Senju Cheng is an important guest specially invited by Bia, not to be a bridegroom, so naturally he does not need to participate in the whole process. Then, Senju Cheng did not say much to Kachika Byakuya, and quickly rushed towards the direction of the B family with the instant step learned from Shifu Yuan Yorishi. At the same time, the B family. As a lower-level noble in the Seireitei, generations have been proud of being the Shinigami of the 1st Squadron of the secret mobile team, which makes a living by executions and assassinations. Even if family members cannot join the Shinigami, they will be directly exiled by the family. Until the generation of Ibisho, the 9th generation of the B family, either because of Ibisho's outstanding talents or because her 5 elder brothers died for the Shiwuin family. Ibisho was also spotted by Shiwuin Yorishi at a very young age, and was appointed as a member of the Direct Guard, always with him to teach. Under Shiwuin Yorishi's attention, the noble status of the B family is gradually improving. In order to further the relationship between the B family and the Shiwuin family, the current head of the B family, that is, Ibisho's grandmother, decided to hold a ceremony to pass on the name of the head of the family. At the time, Ibisho will become the head of the B family at a very young age, and truly bear the name of Suiha, and dedicate everything to the Shiwuin family like the heads of the B family in the past. And this ceremony of passing on the name of the head of the B family was unprecedentedly grand because the captain of the 2nd team, Shiwuin Yorishi, and the captain of the 12th team, Uehara Kisuke, both announced in advance that they would come to participate. Moreover, a large number of the 2nd Division officers, secret mobile team members, and nobles who followed the Shiwuin family who had no missions also participated in the ceremony, giving enough face to the B family, which was only a lower-level noble in the past. It can be expected that although the position of the 2nd Division Vice Captain has been held by the Omida family for many years, the current B family, Aya, will definitely become one of the core senior executives of the 2nd Division and the secret mobile team. Although the B family is quite lively at the moment, everyone's eyes are constantly sweeping towards 2 special empty seats. The inheritance ceremony of the head of the B family will begin soon, but the most important guests of the B family, Shiwuin Yorishi and Uehara Kisuke, have not yet appeared. Even Aya, who was wearing traditional and grand clothes and sitting in accordance with etiquette waiting for the ceremony to begin, showed confusion and panic in her eyes, clenched her fists, and thought silently. "Master Yorishi, where are you?" "And Cheng-kun, it's okay. Yorishi-sama must have been delayed by something, and he will be here soon. Cheng-kun must be like this, they have all promised themselves, they will not break an important agreement." At this important moment, but, no matter what, the young Hachiko felt inexplicably flustered, always feeling that something bad was going to happen, as if she was being abandoned. "Yorishi-sama, Cheng-kun." Hachiko's nails unconsciously dug into her flesh, and her eyes looked into the distance with hope. That was the direction of the 2nd Division's barracks, that was the direction of the 4th Division's barracks, and at this moment in the 4th Division square, although Unohana had temporarily left, the warm atmosphere was still not affected at all. The life of a Shinigami is long, and life in Seireitei is lonely and boring. Therefore, this birthday party specially held by Unohana became a rare event in Seireitei. In addition, one of the main planners of this birthday party is Senju Cheng, so in addition to some elegant activities that cater to Unohana, there are also a lot of novel and interesting games reproduced by Senju Cheng based on the memory of his previous life. Therefore, the square now has almost turned into a sea of joy, and even a considerable number of active captain-level Shinigami have personally participated in it. Watching his captain, Hirako, playing the chair war with 3 or 5 cute girls, Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses aside, and the eyes behind the reflective lenses were full of playfulness and contempt as he murmured, "The real event is just beginning, Captain Hirako." As Aiden Sosok's voice fell, a figure landed in the center of the square with a bang, stirring up large patches of smoke. In addition, a terrifying and chaotic spiritual pressure burst out, sweeping across the entire square, and even shaking the entire Seireitei. What is this? Such a terrifying spiritual pressure. This chaotic feeling, is it a hollow? Are you kidding? The soul-shielding membrane of the Seireitei didn't react at all. How could a hollow invade the Seireitei? Ha ha ha, even if it's a hollow, this is too ridiculous. There are 6 captains present. Even the legendary top-level Great Hollow Stopped would probably be killed instantly, right? However, as the smoke slowly dissipated, a somewhat slender figure covered with a bone shell unique to hollows appeared. Almost all the Shinigami stared with their eyes wide open, revealing expressions of disbelief. Horrifying golden pupils, a posture lying on the ground like a cat, a tail extending behind, a hollow mask covering most of the face, and the tattered second squad captain Sayori, second squad captain and commander-in-chief of the secret mobile team, Shifunuan Orishi. P.S. It's the end of the month, and I would like to ask for monthly tickets from everyone. Thank you very much. Chapter 113. Hollowization, Shifunuan Orishi. Captain Shifuin. Are you kidding me? You must be kidding me. Why has Captain Shifuin become like this? Hollow's posture, Hollow's appearance, and Hollow's spiritual pressure. Except for not having a hollow, Captain Shifuin has completely become a hollow. The Shinigami present looked at Shifuin Orishi in the center of the square in shock, as if their worldview had been hit by an unprecedented impact. Even the 6 captains in the square stood up in disbelief, and realized the seriousness of the matter. A captain-level Shinigami turned into a hollow. This is undoubtedly a rare major event since the establishment of the 13th Gotti Squad, and Shifuin Orishi is now the head of one of the 4 great nobles, which makes the seriousness of the incident even higher. Among them, Kensei Rokurume, who was closest to Shifuin Orishi, saw this and slowly approached Shifuin Orishi cautiously, and asked, "Captain Orishi, can you hear me?" As Rokuma Kensei's voice sounded, it seemed to attract the attention of Shifunuan Orishi, who was lying on the ground like a wild cat or a wild beast. His golden eyes slowly turned and looked at Rokuma Kensei. Seeing this, Rokuma Kensei subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Shifunuan Orishi was still able to respond to language, which meant that Shifunuan Orishi should still be conscious. As long as they could still communicate, they would soon be able to figure out what was going on with this strange situation. However, it was at this moment, "Be careful, Captain Rokuma." At the same time as a roar reached Rokuma Kensei's ears, Rokuma Kensei suddenly lost sight of Shifunuan Orishi in front of him, and instead felt a pain in his back. Puff! A cat-like claw covered with a white bone shell pierced directly from Rokuma Kensei's back to his chest. Great, so fast, he was killed instantly. This thought flashed through Kensei Rokurume's mind before his tall and sturdy body fell to the ground in front of him. Captain Rokurume. Damn it, Captain Shifunuan seems to be completely unconscious. Lisa, something is wrong. Prepare Jintenkonuo. Don't hesitate, everyone, attack together. We must subdue Captain Shifunuan first. Be careful, Captain Shifunuan seems to be faster in this strange state. All Shinigami below the captain, step back, this is not a battle you can participate in. Amid the chaotic shouts of the other 5 captains, the other Shinigami who were originally immersed in joy, only woke up from their dreams when Shifunuan Orishi appeared and Kensei Rokurume fell, and scattered and retreated in a mess. As for the 5 captains present, except for Hirako, the other captains, Fen's Kaolujira, Kachika Jinlang, Ikawa Rabu, and Kikushansui, all released their zanpakutō and attacked Shifunuan Orishi, trying to quickly subdue Shifunuan Orishi. However, at this moment, Shifen Yuan Yorishi was like a wild cat that had a stress response. Under the panic and noisy reactions of the surrounding Shinigami, she turned into a white after image and rushed into the crowd frantically. Ah! Captain, help me quick, stop the bleeding, the 4th Division. For a moment, the entire square turned into a bloody color as Shifen Yuan Yorishi passed by. Whether it was an ordinary Shinigami, a chief officer, or even a vice captain, Shifen Yuan Yorishi was almost torn apart at this moment. Many captains kept trying to stop Shifen Yuan Yorishi, but they could not keep up with Shifen Yuan Yorishi's speed. Finally, seeing the scene becoming more and more chaotic and bloody, Mako Hirako, who had been observing the situation with a cold look and seemed to be staring at Aizen Sasuke, could no longer hold back. Mako Hirako turned his head and glanced at Aizen Sasuke with hostility, warning him. Aizen, you'd better not let me know that you are related to this incident, otherwise even if you hide back in your mother's belly, I will definitely kill you. Aizen Sasuke lowered his head slightly, and seemed to answer with some doubts. Captain Hirako, what are you talking about? At this time, it is the most urgent thing to find a way to solve the situation. Mako Hirako snorted coldly, and also felt that he had wronged Aizen Sasuke. Aizen Sasuke had been under his nose all this time, and he had no chance to do anything. However, Mako Hirako's intuition inexplicably told him that this incident was likely related to Aizen Sasuke, a dangerous man. Then, Mako Hirako drew out his zanpakutō and performed Seireitei. Fall down, nephew. Immediately, as the zanpakutō in Mako Hirako's hand changed rapidly, the end of the handle was hollow and round, and there were 5 more round holes on the blade, which looked quite strange. Seeing this, Kakushunsui, who was worried about the speed of Shifen Yuan Yorishi and could not lock even most of the binding techniques, shouted hurriedly. Quick, restrict the actions of Captain Shifen Yuan. Don't rush us, we should be more worried about the reason why Captain Shifen Yuan became like this, Mako Hirako said casually, revealing great confidence in his words, and his body quickly moved towards Shifen Yuan Yorishi. In an instant, Shifen Yuan Yorishi, who was originally moving instinctively, suddenly stopped, and her limbs lying on the ground seemed to be a little messy and at a loss, as if she didn't know which leg to take. Captain Shifen Yuan, I'm so sorry. My zanpakutō's ability can make the enemies upside down, left and right, front and back, and the direction they see and the direction they're slashed in reverse. If you are still awake, you may be able to move, but in this state, I'm afraid you are confused about which leg to take the next step. Hirako Mako twisted the tip of his zanpakutō in a circle with his index finger, and spoke casually. The other 4 captains also stepped forward to surround Shifen Yuan Yorishi in the middle. Next, we just need to temporarily seal Captain Shifen Yuan with the binding method. Hirako Mako's voice suddenly paused, and suddenly realized that something was wrong, and suddenly turned his head to look behind him. What he saw was a fist that came crashing down. Bang! The fist hit the unprepared Hirako Mako's chin directly, twisting Hirako Mako's entire face, and the whole person flew directly towards Shifen Yuan Yorishi. Chapter 114 Emergency. What? There are still enemies. How could it be? Captain Ngurume, as the other 4 captains were startled, they looked in the direction where Hirako Mako was originally, and found that the figure who had directly blasted Hirako Mako away was Ngurume Kensei. However, at this moment, a large amount of white substance unique to hollows continued to emerge from the large hole in the chest of Ngurume Kensei that was opened by Shifen Yuan Yorishi, and the holes in the facial features, and a layer of hollow white bone shell gradually covered Ngurume Kensei's body and face. Roar. The next moment, Ngurume Kensei, who seemed to have expanded in size, clenched his fists and let out a violent roar like a beast, and a huge wave of air suddenly exploded in all directions. This scene also completely shocked the 4 captains. Not only Shifen Yuan Yorishi, but even Ngurume Kensei, who was just in front of them, was also transforming into hollows, and seemed to have completely lost his original consciousness and launched a sneak attack on Hirako Mako. However, it seemed that Kensei Ngurume's roar was a signal. Many of the Shinigami who had just been injured by Yorishi Shoin's attack let out tragic wails, and white substances of hollows kept coming out of their bodies. For a time, a large number of Shinigami began to transform into hollows, and some of the Shinigami's spirits collapsed directly during the transformation process. The entire spirit was disintegrated into spirit particles in the blink of an eye, which made the entire square look so weird and terrifying. No, it's Captain Shoin. All the Shinigami he attacked showed signs of hollowing. Maybe it's not just Captain Shoin. It's possible that the spirits attacked by the hollowed Shinigami will undergo a chain reaction like change. If that's the case, then it's troublesome. It's possible that the entire Seireitei and even Soul Society will be destroyed because of this, Kakushansu said solemnly with an extremely ugly face, and then looked in the direction of his vice-captain, Lisa Yamura, and shouted subconsciously. Lisa, is Tentyakura ready? Report this serious situation to the entire Seireitei area immediately, and immediately dispatch the ghosts to completely seal off the entire 4th Division with a barrier. It sounds slow, but in fact, it has only been more than 10 breaths since Shifen Yuan Yorishi appeared. As a ghost that can directly transmit information over a large range, Tentyakura, the 77th binding path requires not only the word spirit, but also the pattern carving to be used. Therefore, Lisa Yamamara, the vice-captain of the 8th Division, has just finished carving the last stroke on her arm. Black and white, 22 bridges, 66 crowns and belts, footprints, distant thunder, peaks, back to the ground, night ambush, sea of clouds, blue Q, fill the Taiyuan and rush straight to the sky. The 77th way of binding. Tenty avoid. Suddenly, through the 77th way of binding, Tenty avoid, Yamamara Lisa quickly captured all the spiritual pressures of all sizes within the entire jingling court, and then opened her mouth to make statements to all the spiritual pressure targets. Emergency. Emergency. The following is a joint announcement from the captains of the 3rd, 5th, 7th and 8th Divisions, conveyed by the vice-captain of the 8th Division, Yamamara Lisa. In an instant, almost all the Shinigami, nobles, ghosts, gatekeepers and even many maids and servants within the entire jingling court heard the voice of Yamamara Lisa. Among them, quite a few have already sensed the abnormal and almost hollow spiritual pressure coming from the direction of the 4th Division's barracks. The Shinigami who were still hesitating about what was going on looked even more solemn. The emergency joint report issued by the 4 division captains and the 77th binding path, Tentyakura was enough to show that the severity of the incident was completely beyond imagination, and even the 4 captain level Shinigami could not handle the crisis together. At present, in the 4th Division's barracks, Captain Shifen Yuan Yorishi suddenly showed signs of abnormal hollowing, and Shifen Yuan Yorishi unconsciously and indiscriminately attacked the Shinigami. In addition, the Shinigami who were attacked by Captain Shifen Yuan also showed abnormal hollowing one after another in a very short period of time and fell into an unconscious state. Here, request emergency captain level combat support, and request the kittens to quickly dispatch to seal the 4th Division's barracks with a barrier, and must be extremely. However, before Yamamara Lisa's voice was finished, the 77th binding path, Tentyakura was suddenly interrupted. Bang! On the top floor of the 1st Division's dormitories, the 1st Division's chief captain, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, stared at the vaguely visible chaos in the direction of the 4th Division's dormitories, and couldn't help but knock the floor heavily with his cane. The 13th Division of the Gotti actually encountered such a situation. How out of control is this? Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni opened his eyes slightly, revealing a terrifying aura, and then spoke. Order all captains of the Seireitei to go out immediately, and ask the 2 Ghost Masters to leave the Ghost Masters to go to the 4th Division's dormitories immediately and seal off the entire 4th Division's dormitories with a barrier to prevent the chaos from spreading further. After hearing this, the 1st Division's vice-captain, Suzuki Chojiro, who was standing respectfully behind Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, hesitated for a moment and asked, "But if this happens, the dangerous situation of the captains and team members who were trapped in the barrier will be further aggravated." Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni stared at the 4th Division's dormitories for a breath, and said calmly, "Since this is the decision made by the 4 captains including Kakushansu, I also need to trust them." "Yes." Suzuki Chojiro nodded and said, "I will go down and convey the order immediately." Just as Suzuki Chojiro was about to leave, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni suddenly spoke. "You should also go to the 4th Division's barracks in person, Captain General. Are you worried that the situation will be out of control?" Suzuki Chojiro asked. At this moment, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's tone became more solemn. "No, what I am worried about is not just the so-called hollowing, but that the position is in the 4th Division's barracks. Now Captain Unohana is at the forefront with no room to retreat." Suzuki Chojiro heard this, his face condensed. As a vice-captain who had followed Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni for thousands of years, he instantly understood what Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni was worried about. In the Seireitei, the 4th Division is allowed to reach the front line of the battlefield for medical support when necessary, but the captain of the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu, is an exception. There is a special ban on Captain Unohana. Under no circumstances is Captain Unohana allowed to approach the front line of the battlefield without permission. Chapter 115. Please draw your sword. Not only the 1st Division, but also Shinigami in various parts of the Seireitei began to react. In the 11th Division's barracks, Kinpachi Seireitei had already brought his pink lily and zanpakutō strode out of the barracks. Wait, Captain, the 1st Division's order hasn't arrived yet. Wait a little longer. Behind Kinpachi Seireitei, Ikaku Madarumi and Yamachika Isigawa, who had gradually become Kinpachi's tools for handling tedious affairs within the team, kept reminding him. Kinpachi Seireitei, who had just smelled the opportunity to fight, almost ignored the shouts behind him. Under the command of Yaoru Kusaka at his shoulder, he was like a bulldozer, pushing forward in one direction. Go, Kinpachi, fight! 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 Here, no, it should be over there. However, a moment later, Kinpachi Seireitei and Yaoru Kusaka looked at the seemingly strange yet familiar environment around them, and the two pairs of eyes revealed similar confusion and bewilderment. Where am I? Where is the road to the 4th Division's barracks? Yaoru, what roads are you leading to? Kinpachi Seireitei said in a somewhat irritable tone, as if he had taken off his pants in the music bureau and couldn't find anyone. This is obviously Xiaojian's fault. I just pointed to the left, but you rushed to the right. Kusaka Yaoru also puffed up his cheeks and said cutely. Next, Xiaojian, listen to my instructions carefully, understand? Over there, then, Kusaka Yaoru pointed casually in the direction of a seemingly strong spiritual pressure with the same spiritual pressure sensing ability as Kinpachi Seireitei. However, neither Kusaka Yaoru nor Kinpachi Seireitei noticed that the direction they were heading was almost completely opposite to the 4th Division's barracks, but was heading towards the direction of the 12th Division's barracks. And at this moment in the 4th Division's barracks, the situation has become increasingly serious. Mako Hirako, Rabawaikawa, and Kensei Guru may have also fallen into the state of hollowification. With the presence of Yorishi Shiuin, 4 captain-level Shinigami have fallen into the state of hollowification. As for the many Shinigami, the chief officers, and even the vice-captains who were originally in the square, they were also in chaos, and the losses were serious. What made Kakushansui look extremely ugly was Lee Senra, who was held in his arms. This girl always acted extremely calm and mature in front of Kakushansui in the past, and could easily handle the affairs of the entire 8th Division, and always warned Kakushansui not to immerse herself in bitterness. At this time, under the erosion of hollowification, Lee Senra showed a fragility that she had never had before. The eyes that barely retained some consciousness seemed to convey her hope that she did not want to die. Lizen, don't worry, I'm still here. Have a good sleep, and when you wake up, the captain you usually despise will have taken care of everything. As Kakushansui spoke, he took off the bamboo hat he usually wore and placed it in Amarilisa's arms, giving her a bit of warmth and hope instead of his own palm. The next moment, Kakushansui released the advanced binding technique he had prepared in advance, completely suppressing his vice-captain on the spot. I'm sorry, Lee-san, this may be a little painful, but please be patient with the captain's rough behavior. After all, in the next battle, the captain doesn't want to hurt or even kill the lucky Lee-san. Then, Kakushansui took the double zanpakutō, Kaiten Kimkotsu, which was stuck in the ground. The lazy and unreliable look on Kakushansui's face disappeared completely, replaced by an unprecedented sharp and calm look. Kakushansui glanced around and quickly judged the current situation. Now, the Shinigami have withdrawn from the empty square, shrinking their defenses back to Unohana courtyard, and Unohana has also begun to try to treat the Shinigami who have begun to hollow out. Although 4 captains, including Shiu and Yorishi, have fallen into this strange state of hollowing, the situation seems to be much better than Kakushansui imagined. Because it seems that only Shiu and Yorishi has the ability to cause the other spirits to hollow out. And after those Shinigami enter the hollow state, although their intelligence disappears and their spiritual pressure increases significantly, they will only follow their instincts like the lowest level Great Hollow, Killian. And not all Shinigami will be hollowed successfully. A considerable number of Shinigami will collapse and dissipate directly during the process of hollowing. Although from an emotional point of view, those Shinigami whose spirits have collapsed have lost the opportunity to recover through subsequent treatment, and they die directly during the process of hollowing, which is very regrettable and sad. But rationally, the number of hollowed enemies that need to be faced will be greatly reduced, and there is no need to face colleagues with swords. So, we must hold Captain Shifen Yuan back no matter what to prevent the situation from escalating further, and then wait for support from the rest of the squad and the Kidmashu, Kamraku Shunsui muttered, then looked in the direction of Unohana Retsu, hesitated for a moment, and spoke. Captain Unohana, if the situation is really so bad that it is irreversible, then please draw your sword. Unohana Retsu paused in his attempts to heal, raised his head, and asked. Captain Kamraku, does what you said represent what Captain General Yamamoto meant? If I draw my sword, maybe? The next moment, Unohana Retsu's gentle eyes turned, and he spoke slowly in a cold tone. Don't leave anyone in sight. Hearing this, Kamraku Shunsui almost subconsciously broke out in cold sweat on his forehead, but still spoke calmly. Yes, although the current situation seems to have become clear, there must be a mastermind behind everything. His goal is not just this chaos, but probably to destroy the entire Soul Society. Under such circumstances, the old man must not act rashly. He must stay in the First Division, and the situation here has reached the most critical moment. If the mastermind makes any move that causes the situation to get out of control, the 6 captain-level monsters will start wreaking havoc in the Seireitei, and the consequences will be unimaginable. So, if it really comes to that, Captain Unohana, please draw your sword. However, despite stating all the words clearly, Kamraku Shunsui couldn't help but increase his heartbeat as he watched Unohana Retsu's indescribable expression change. Even Kamraku Shunsui, who knew Unohana Retsu's past quite well, could not imagine how terrifying it would be if Unohana Retsu's murderous intent, which had been suppressed for thousands of years, was released all at once. At the time, the choice, would it be good or bad for the Soul Society? Chapter 116. Loneliness and the same kind. However, the situation obviously did not give Kaku Shunsui too much time to think. Everything happened so suddenly and quickly. Even now, it is still unclear who is the mastermind behind the scenes. What is the ultimate goal? More importantly, after spending a considerable amount of time, Unohana Retsu, who was originally highly expected by Kaku Shunsui, seems to have completely failed to solve the problem of his spirit being eroded by the hollow and showing signs of hollowification. So, if it really comes to the last step, it is better to stop everything in a bloody way instead of letting the situation continue to deteriorate. Then, Kaku Shunsui turned the flower-tanked Kaku bones in his hand, threw the pink feather coat behind him onto Yamamara-Lisa, who was sealed on the ground by the bindage, and ran towards the battle situation in front of him where Fen's Kaolujura and Kachika Jinline were struggling to hold on. Not good at enjoying it alone. Kaku Shunsui raised the double-bladed zanpakutō in his hand, and suddenly released a spinning gale like a gyroscope and rushed straight to Shifen Yuan Yorishi, trying to attract the attention of Shifen Yuan Yorishi, who was in a state of hollowification and unconsciousness. Hey, the little wild cat of the Shiwuin family, come and play an interesting game with me. As Kaku Shunsui's voice fell, Shiwuin Yorishi appeared in front of Kaku Shunsui almost instantly, and the sharp bone outer claws swung directly towards Kaku Shunsui's mouth. Dang! The spiritual pressure burst out, and the air currents intertwined, blowing the captain's Aori on Kaku Shunsui's body. But even so, Kaku Shunsui still steadily took Shiwuin Yorishi's terrifying attack. However, almost in an instant, Shiwuin Yorishi, who was suppressing Kaku Shunsui in midair, disappeared, turned into a residual image, and crouched under Kaku Shunsui at a speed that seemed to be incompatible with common sense. Kaku Shunsui's pupils shrank, and his body retreated violently, but his mouth did not stop at all, constantly attracting Shiwuin Yorishi's attention. His fighting style is close to that of a hollow, but his speed is even faster than normal. What a monster! However, at this moment, Yorishi's Shoin's speed has almost broken through common sense. He once again approached Kaku Shunsui, and his sharp claws pierced directly into the chest of Kaku Shunsui wearing the Shinigami suit. At this moment, Kaku Shunsui, who was in midair, had almost no way to avoid it, and he didn't even have time to block. However, with his sharp eyes, Kaku Shunsui did not panic at all, and whispered softly, "Captain Shoin, this is a game, white." Suddenly, Shoin Yorishi's attack on Kaku Shunsui's chest with the black Shinigami suit seemed to be affected by some rules and lost its effect. The next moment, Kaku Shunsui's Kaiten Kwanga rushed straight to the white bone shell covering the large amount of Shoin Yorishi's body, and cut it down. Sizzle! That seemingly light slash burst out with huge power. The white bone shell of Shiwuin Yorishi was directly torn apart, and large pieces of blood splashed out. The white captain's Aori behind Kaku Shunsui was swaying in the air. This scene was completely seen by the two figures standing in the corner of the square. It was Aizen Sosok, who was fighting desperately against the attack of the hollowed Shinigami in the courtyard in the eyes of everyone, and Tosun, who did not participate in the birthday party. P.S. I want to complain that Tosun is blind and can't see anything. In the original work, there was a scene where Tosun sat in front of the monitor and operated it. A blind man is in charge of the monitor. Anyway, it's outrageous. Tosun is sure he is not just slacking off. Captain Kirku, what's the matter with the zanpakutō mobility? Why is Shibuya Yorishi's attack ineffective against him? Tosun asked in confusion. Aizen Sosok, who was wearing black-framed glasses, did not change his expression at all, as if he had expected it. This is only natural. Compared with those new captains who are less than 100 years old, Captain Kirku, as the first graduate of the Shinigami Academy of Spiritual Arts and a direct disciple of Captain General Yamamoto, is not so easy to be defeated. After a pause, Aizen Sosok stated calmly. Captain Kirku's zanpakutō, Hanaten Kimkotsu, is a zanpakutō that can set the rules of the game within a certain range. The rules that Captain Kirku just set should be that only attacks against white are effective, and the more attacks on the side with white color, the stronger the effect. Upon hearing this, Tosun fell silent. As a blind man, he can't distinguish colors. In other words, Kirku-shansui set rules for colors. As long as Kirku-shansui secretly changed into a set of clothes of other colors, he would undoubtedly be a natural nemesis of Tosun. At this moment, Tosun felt the malice of the world towards the blind. Then, Tosun sensed Shibuya Yorishi, who was fighting with Kirku-shansui again, and asked, Lord Aizen, what should we do? It seems quite difficult for Shibuya Yorishi, who has fallen into unconsciousness, to break through this ability and hurt Kirku-shansui. No problem, using these captains as test subjects for hollowification to collect information is just a matter of convenience. Captain Kirku will not affect my ultimate goal. Aizen Sosok said calmly, his eyes turned, looking at some uncontrollable Shinigami who had gradually completely turned from the hollow state into a deformed hollow. What was presented to Aizen Sosok was undoubtedly a large-scale hollowification experimental field. From ordinary team members to the chief officers, vice captains, and finally even the captain-level Shinigami, in Aizen Sosok's eyes, they were all just hollowification test subjects that served as a control group for each other. Ordinary Shinigami members almost collapsed in the early stage of hollowification. The chief officer could not hold on for long before his spirit twisted and turned into a deformed hollow like a wild beast. The vice captain was still barely maintaining his Shinigami form. The captain-level Shinigami unexpectedly persisted, and the strength of his spiritual pressure increased significantly. Chaos, blood, cruelty, but in the eyes of Aizen Sosok, all this was just a series of experimental data, and a little sacrifice on his way to transcend the ultimate evolution of Shinigami. Thank you for your dedication, Aizen Sosok said calmly, and he had a clear direction on how to further improve hollowification in his heart. However, Aizen Sosok's posture and tone made Tosun expression more complicated. Lord Aizen, is that Senju Cheng really that important? You do this for him, even though you could do it in a less risky way. Aizen Sosok glanced at Tosun, his glasses reflecting the cruel and chaotic battlefield in front of him, but the corners of his mouth seemed to rise slightly as he spoke. You probably understand that feeling. People are lonely throughout their lives, but as long as they feel the breath of their unkind ones, they will never forget it for the rest of their lives. Chapter 117. The appearance of Seireitei. After hearing this, Tosun fell silent, as if he had recalled something. However, what Tosun felt was not a fellow human being, but love. Once a love that truly touches the soul is felt, it will be unforgettable for a lifetime, and Aizen Sosok noticed Tosun's hesitant look and said, this is also for our future path. Makoto is a person who was born to transcend the limits of the god of death, and is also my equal. It's just that I seemed to be too arrogant at the beginning, and I ignored that Makoto might not really notice the corruption and darkness hidden in the Seireitei. So in order to prevent Makoto from standing on the opposite side of us in the future, and to prevent the superficial peace of soul society from blinding Makoto's eyes, letting Makoto witness some truths with his own eyes is undoubtedly the best choice. Tosun was silent for a moment, and responded respectfully. I understand, Master Aizen. If you think Senju Cheng has such value, I will follow your will. This is a matter of course. Aizen Sosok said lightly, as if responding to Tosun's loyalty, and also as if evaluating something. Then, Aizen Sosok did not intervene again, but quietly observed the changes of the experimental subjects in front of him. The situation is also constantly tilting. Kukushansui's explosion completely blocked Shifen Yuan Yorishi in the hollow state, and repeatedly injured Shifen Yuan Yorishi, who only had instincts left with his unique zanpakutō ability. However, as Shifen Yuan Yorishi's hollowness continued to increase, Shifen Yuan Yorishi gradually mastered the high-speed regeneration unique to the hollow, and those injuries did not have a real impact on Shifen Yuan Yorishi. On the other side, Fenj Kaoru and Kachika Jinlang joined forces, but they were just struggling to support themselves under the siege of the three hollow captains, Hirako Mako, Rote Guru Makensei and Ayaka Waramu. As for the Shinigami, who retreated to the courtyard to establish a defense line, with Aizome Sasuke, Shiba Sentetsu, Kotsube Kirenimon and other vice-captains as the core, they could still maintain their position under the attack of a large number of hollow Shinigami. However, this was originally Unohana Retsu's birthday party after all, and most of the participants were Shinigami from the 4th Division who lacked combat capabilities, and the proportion of Shinigami from other divisions was not high. As more and more Shinigami from the seat officials were completely twisted into real hollows, the pressure on the entire courtyard defense line increased sharply. If Unohana Retsu had not used the HUD many times to ease the situation, I'm afraid the courtyard defense line would have been completely defeated. At this moment, Aiden Sasuke smiled, as if he was really smiling from the bottom of his heart, and slowly turned around and looked behind him. Under the moonlight, the square was stained with blood. Senju Cheng held his zanpakutō in one hand, and spoke word by word with a gloomy and angry expression. Aiden Sasuke, what are you doing? Aiden Sasuke did not doubt that Senju Cheng could directly find the location of Himanto Senkaname through the illusion created by zanpakutō Switjetsu. Because in Aiden Sasuke's impression, he had never released zanpakutō Switjetsu to Senju Cheng, so naturally Senju Cheng would not be affected by zanpakutō Switjetsu. Facing Senju Cheng's questioning, Aiden Sasuke spread his hands and answered gently. As Makoto-kun can see, I am waiting for Makoto-kun. However, what Aiden Sasuke did not know is that in Senju Cheng's eyes, he could not see Aiden Sasuke's location at all, nor could he hear Aiden Sasuke's voice. All he could see was an empty space. The location and words that Senju Cheng knew were all relayed according to Yulu's Liu. This is undoubtedly a risky move. To completely trust Yulu's Liu was almost as outrageous as handing over one's life and property to someone else's wife. And a little bit earlier in time, when Makoto Senju left the square and headed for the B family courtyard, Makoto Senju realized the seriousness of the problem the moment he sensed the spiritual pressure that was similar to that of a hollow erupting in the direction of the 4th Division's barracks, and quickly rushed back to the direction of the 4th Division. After Makoto Senju listened to the information conveyed by Amara Lisa through Tentim Kuro, he fully understood what happened. Hollowification incident. It's just completely different from the original trajectory. In the original trajectory, the hollowification incident should not appear for several years, at least after Jin Ichimura graduated from the Mao Spiritual Academy and became the 3rd seat of the 5th Division. At this moment, Makoto Senju realized that under the wings of his little butterfly, there might be some subtle influence, which led to Aiden Sasuke conducting the hollowification experiment in this more crazy way. At this time, Senju Makoto, who had been rushing on the road with instant steps, suddenly stopped and questioned the air in front of him. Yulu's Liu, did you break our agreement? Yulu's Liu's shadow slowly formed from the spirit particles, still wearing a black belt and covering her eyes, like an elegant noble sister. The slight vibration between the spirit particles expressed Yulu's Liu's meaning. Mr. Makoto, our agreement is to report to you everything that Aiden Sasuke mentioned about you, but I didn't promise to report everything to you in detail. That would be too tiring and cumbersome. Senju Makoto narrowed his eyes and clearly understood that Yulu's Liu definitely concealed something from him. Once the seeds of doubt were planted, the interpretation of the details of Yulu's Liu's behavior and language in the past took root and sprouted. After a slight hesitation, Senju Makoto suddenly raised his head and spoke with a sharp look. Is this your will, right? Zanpakutō. Yulu's Liu's exposed mouth opened slightly, as if he was a little surprised. The next moment, Yulu's Liu's image slowly changed, turning into an elegant nobleman with a black ponytail, 2 long bangs in the middle, and wearing the aori of the captain of the 11th Division. His expression was calm, his temperament was elegant and weak, which seemed to be completely different from the fierce and violent style inherent in the 11th Division. And this was the former captain of the 11th Division, the 8th generation Kinpachi Zanpakutō. Zanpakutō's shadow slowly fell to the ground, looking at each other level with Senju Makoto, and asked with a little more ripples in his eyes. Makutō, how did you guess this from this sentence? Senju Makutō stared at Zaraki Futsuba. His appearance was both unexpected and expected. As Zaraki Futsuba's zanpakutō, Yulu's Healu can simulate a shadow through spirit particles, so Zaraki Futsuba cannot fail to do this. However, during the past 6 months, no matter how often Senju Makutō flirted with Yulu's Healu, or even when Yulu's Healu said some obscene word to him, Zaraki Chuan never reacted. This made Senju Makutō doubt his own judgment. Chapter 118. Zaraki Sao's purpose. Facing the question from Zaraki Fuwa, Senju Makutō's eyes flickered slightly, and he did not mean to answer. Perhaps, Senju Makutō, who did not want to expose the part of his memories related to his previous life, had no way to answer Zaraki Fuwa's question. From Zaraki Fuwa's perspective, due to the ability of spiritual control, Zaraki Fuwa could not intuitively understand all the details of Senju Makutō. With Senju Makutō as the center, it was like a miniature visual black hole, and any spirit that directly contacted Senju Makutō would be forced to lose control. However, what Senju Makutō did, heard, and said in the jingling court on weekdays, Zaraki Fuwa still knew clearly. It is precisely because of this that, given what information Senju Makutō can usually access, plus the information provided by himself, this is undoubtedly all that constitutes the information cocoon surrounding Senju Makutō. In this case, Senju Makutō was able to perceive that Yulu's Healu concealed some information, which was undoubtedly incredible in the eyes of Zaraki Fuwa. You are really an incredible existence, Makutō-kun. Obviously, I am quite sure that your ability is not similar to the spirit particle illusion, which can integrate yourself into the spirit particles for large-scale monitoring, but I have no idea how you know more information from other channels and judge the flaws in the information provided by Yulu's Healu. It seems that it has been too long since he directly communicated with others. Zaraki Fuwa did not behave like a rational person as described by Yulu's Healu. Instead, he spoke slowly and clearly. Senju Makutō ignored Zaraki Fuwa's answer and asked directly. So, you're an ally of Vacant Sosok. What was your purpose in contacting me from the beginning? In fact, except for concealing some information and modifying a few sentences under my intervention, the information that Yulu's Healu told you is all true. Zaraki Fuwa stated in a rational tone. I'm just a spectator and thinker now. The reason why Yulu's Healu contacted you is just because of her personality. She likes to communicate with one more person instead of just facing me, a taciturn person. After a pause, under the somewhat surprised gaze of Senju Makutō, Zaraki Fuwa bowed slightly to apologize to Senju Makutō. I hope Makutō-kun will not be angry with Yulu's Healu for this. After all, I'm the owner of Yulu's Healu. Based on my will, it is difficult for her to go against my will, so she concealed or modified some information. Senju Makutō looked deeply at Zaraki Fuwa in front of him, and his mind also flashed the information about Zaraki Fuwa that he had collected through Madarome Ikaku over the past 6 months. Zaraki Fuwa. He defeated the 7th generation of Kuriashika Kinpachi in a head-on duel and took the title of Kinpachi, but he did not manage the affairs of the team too much. Instead, after becoming the captain of the 11th Division, he quickly proposed to the Central 46th Office in the name of the captain a crazy plan to transform the useless residents of Rukongei into war machines to attack the Hukou Mundo, thereby completely eliminating the Hollows. Afterwards, it seems that some contradictions and conflicts had occurred. Zaraki Futari betrayed the Seireitei, and then quickly surrendered to the Central 46th Office, and was eventually sentenced to 19,200 years in the Infernal Hell. This is a sentence that is 400 years longer than that of Vacant Sosok in the original plot, which is enough to prove that in the eyes of the Central 46th Office, Zaraki Futari's degree of harm is even higher than Vacant Sosok, and he is also a mysterious man. At this moment, in front of Senju Makutō, Zaraki Futari behaved quite modestly and politely, and even took the initiative to explain and apologize for his zanpakutō, which shows that his heart has a different kind of kindness and softness. At least, if Senju Makutō watched Shinigami and other male Shinigami being affectionate every day, he would definitely draw his sword first to perform some interesting surgery on the male Shinigami. This action of Zaraki Futari actually shows that in his mind, Yulu's Healu may not be his half-body or will, but more like an equal and respected existence. Senju Makutō pushed up his glasses and quickly completed the psychological profile of Zaraki Futari, and said, Bystander? Thinker? Not necessarily, Zaraki Futari, otherwise you wouldn't deliberately interfere with me. What is your purpose? Hearing this, Zaraki Futaba raised his head and looked at the sky of the Seireitei, as if he wanted to see something farther away through the soul-blocking membrane surrounding the Seireitei, and then said, "Makao, do you know the Soul King? Do you know the Zero Squad? In a special space above the Seireitei, it is a place named the Soul King Palace." After a pause, Zaraki Futaba looked at Senju Makao and said, "You also know some of my experiences. When I escaped from the Seireitei, I intended to spend countless years to completely integrate myself into the entire Soul Society, and then drag the entire Soul Society into a collision with the Hukou Mundo, thereby destroying a large number of hollows." Senju Makao looked at the seemingly elegant and weak man in front of him, and couldn't help but be shocked by his terrible thinking. No wonder, the Central 46th Chamber sentenced Zaraki Futaba to 19,200 years in prison for his treason. In a sense, Zaraki Futaba undoubtedly has the power to destroy the Soul Society. Then why did you choose to surrender? Is it related to the Soul King Palace? Senju Makao asked. Zaraki Futaba nodded and said calmly, "When I began to integrate into the entire Soul Society, I noticed the strange space where the Soul King Palace was hidden, and I also noticed the existence and will of the Soul King. He was obstructing me." After a pause, Zaraki Futaba continued to state in a rational and calm tone, "After that, I returned to the Seireitei and integrated into the entire Seireitei. Only then did I realize that the Soul King was not the true ruler of Soul Society. He was just a wedge that stabilized the three worlds of Soul Society, Hukou Mundo, and the real world. But as long as the Soul King still exists, I can't force Soul Society and Hukou Mundo to collide, so my original plan was a failure from the beginning." Senju Makao asked while quickly recording useful information. "So, is this why you help Aizen Sasuke? I hope he can destroy the Soul King Palace, so that you can also achieve the goal of destroying Hukou Mundo." Zaraki Futaba's eyes turned, his tone became more surprised, and then he answered calmly. "In Makao's opinion, can Aizen Sasuke destroy the Soul King Palace? My biggest hope for Aizen Sasuke was that he could cause a commotion that would alarm the Zero Division that guards the Soul King Palace and descend on the Seireitei, thereby opening the channel for the flow of soul energy from the Seireitei to the Soul King Palace. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 119 Dilemma. Immediately, Senju Makao understood the plan of Zaraki Futaba. If Yuli's Healu had not concealed the ability of spirit particle illusion, then as long as the passage between the Soul King Palace and the Seireitei was opened, the spirit particles containing Zaraki Futaba's will and spiritual pressure would be able to reach the Soul King Palace. Even during this period, if Zaraki Futaba slightly destroyed his seal in the infernal hell, it would not be impossible for Zaraki Futaba's body to sneak into the Soul King Palace quietly. By then, Zaraki Futaba might be crazy enough to destroy the Soul King he mentioned as the World Wedge, and thus achieve the plan to destroy Hukou Mundo. It's really an extraordinary plan. In the past, most of the attention was on Aizen Sasuke, but Zaraki Futaba, the former captain hidden deep in the infernal hell, was so terrifying that he directly used Aizen Sasuke as a chess piece to test the Soul King Palace. Of course, even so, Senju Makao does not think that Zaraki Futaba is stronger than Aizen Sasuke. In a sense, Zaraki Futaba is hiding in the dark and waiting for the opportunity because of his own lack of strength and inability to challenge the Soul King Palace head-on. However, in the eyes of Senju Makao now, Zaraki Futaba is undoubtedly an extreme lunatic. Zaraki Futaba, don't you understand that if Hukou Mundo is destroyed, the balance of the world will be destroyed? This is also common sense for the god of death. Senju Makao reminded. I'm just fulfilling my duty as a god of death. Destroying hollows is the duty of the god of death, isn't it? Zaraki Futaba answered calmly. Of course, Zaraki Futaba's answer obviously lacks fundamental persuasiveness. This is like a world policeman plans to choose to make the world nuclear peace in order to fight criminals, completely cut off the birth of criminals from the root, and claim that it is just as ridiculous as justice and duty. Senju Makao asked speculatively. Is it because of personal grudges? In an instant, Senju Makao observed a flash of emotion on Zaraki Futaba's face. Mr. Makao, why do you say that? Because of a keen intuition? Asked Zaraki. It's not intuition, it's just that the reason that can make a person fall into extremes is often very simple personal hatred. It's just to convince one's sense of justice and gentleness, so it's deliberately given a high-sounding word. Senju Cheng pushed his glasses and said in a voice full of rationality. Hearing this, Seireitei fell into silence. His expression, with his head slightly lowered and shrouded in shadows, was a little difficult to discern his emotions. The next moment, the shadow of the rain and dew slowly appeared beside Seireitei and called softly. Sire. This sound seemed to wake Seireitei, and then he sighed, raised his head and said with some reminiscence. Mr. Cheng, that's really a long-lost memory, a memory so long that I don't want to recall it actively. Maybe you were right. The reason why I want to destroy all the hollows may be more because of personal hatred. After a pause, Seireitei looked at Senju Cheng and asked. Mr. Cheng, if Unohana was killed by a hollow in front of you, what will you choose? Senju Cheng was slightly startled, then smiled and said. No hollow can defeat Unohana-sensei. Then put it another way, Seireitei stared at Senju Cheng and asked. What if the one who intends to kill Unohana is Aizen Sasuke? Senju Cheng, his pupils shrank, and his expression, which had always been quite calm, suddenly became a little ugly. Senju Cheng knew that Unohana was the first-generation Kenpachi, and his real combat power was terrifying. But if Aizen Sasuke was intentional, even Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, the strongest god of death, would be calculated to death, which is why Senju Cheng has always been extremely afraid of Aizen Sasuke in the past. But soon, Senju Cheng calmed down and asked Seireitei, looking at him. What do you know? Are you telling me this to make a deal with me? Please answer my question first, and please answer according to your heart. Seireitei said calmly. Senju Cheng took a few deep breaths, and then tried his best to put his heart into the situation. At that moment, Senju Cheng suddenly found that he had a panic feeling, as if the thing he cherished most was being stripped away from his body bit by bit. Anger, uncontrollable anger. Perhaps for Senju Cheng, the importance of Unohana was not the whole world, but she is undoubtedly the beautiful Unohana blooming in the center of the whole world. After a moment, Senju Cheng opened his eyes and answered. I will do everything I can to kill Aizen Sasuke, so, are you going to stop me? I said, I'm just a bystander, and I don't have the ability to interfere with the outside world now. Seireitei shook his head and said. It's just that I'm probably the same. As long as I can destroy all the hollows, it doesn't matter what happens. At this point, in Senju Cheng's eyes, the behavior logic of Seireitei, who was imprisoned in the hell by his real body, was already quite clear. His purpose seems to be to destroy all hollows from the beginning to the end. Whether it is to transform the residents of Cheng-ge into anti-hollow weapons, or to cause the collision between Soul Society and Huko Mundo, or to destroy the Soul King Palace, etc., Seireitei doesn't care. It is precisely because of this that in order to prevent Senju Cheng from destroying Aizen Sasuke's plan, some of the information about Aizen Sasuke was concealed from Senju Cheng under the interference of Seireitei's will. Logic, motivation, and Seireitei's extreme thinking. There is no doubt that before Seireitei is shaken by the idea that Aizen Sasuke can alarm the Zero Division, Seireitei will not take the initiative to destroy Aizen Sasuke's plan, and will even intentionally help Aizen Sasuke to cover up to a certain extent. Perhaps, what Hiryu said before about Aizen Sasuke's ambiguous behavior of writing his name, is also false, in order to ease his hostility towards Aizen Sasuke. However, judging from the contact process between Aizen Sasuke and Ichimura Jin, it is an indisputable fact that I was targeted by Aizen Sasuke. Perhaps I was also originally used as one of the hollowification experiments in the 4th Division Plaza, but I was lucky enough to escape because of Hoshino. At this time, I should be more rational and must not return to the 4th Division barracks. I should stay away to avoid being affected. But, could it be that Unohana-sensei was also listed as a hollowification experiment by Aizen Sasuke? For a moment, Senju Cheng clearly felt that he was in a dilemma. Chapter 120 The Wrong Road. Rationally speaking, Senju knows nothing about Aizen Sasuke's plan now, and besides the hand that has completed the extreme spirit body transformation, Senju's real combat power may only be able to temporarily hold back the captain-level death god with Rokuma Kensei as the standard. However, Aizen Sasuke can almost kill an ordinary captain with one sword. It can be said that at this moment, Senju will most likely be killed instantly when facing Aizen Sasuke. Although under the ability of spiritual control, as long as Senju's spirit is not destroyed without a drop, and even consciousness is completely annihilated. Then as long as Makatao Senju is given enough time, he can slowly recover his body by absorbing the spirits floating in the air bit by bit. However, the time may be extremely long, and Makatao Senju's consciousness is probably similar to the experience of serving a sentence in the hell. Therefore, staying away from the 4th Division's barracks is undoubtedly the safest choice. However, the words of Zaraki Fugai just now echoed in Makatao Senju's ears like a nightmare. What if the one who intends to kill Unohana Retsu is Aiden Sasuke? Even if you go to the 4th Division's barracks, you may not be able to play any role. Don't do stupid things, Senju Makatao. Unohana Retsu, is it really worth it for you to do this? She just taught you Kido and medical skills without reservation, and she usually cares about you a little more. That is, she smiles very gently and is beautiful. There are many beautiful female Shinigami in the Seireitei. After Unohana Retsu dies, you may not have no hope of winning over the captain of the 4th Division. With the status of the captain, what female Shinigami can't you pursue? Perhaps, Unohana Retsu just regards you as an ordinary disciple, a valuable tool, and you haven't heard her answer. With this thought, Senju Makatao's eyes suddenly became firm. Hesitation will be in vain, retreat will lead to defeat. Since you want to go, then go and listen to the answer of Unohana teacher. Even if this spirit is completely annihilated, at most all the consciousness can be transferred to the bracelet on Jin Ichimura, and it will take at most a few hundred years to recreate the spirit from scratch. And even if Jin Ichimura betrays me and chooses to destroy the bracelet, the nails hidden in the Kachika family courtyard can be restored. Otherwise, the hair buried in 3 different places in Rukonge can also transfer consciousness. Unless the entire Soul Society is destroyed, there is still a chance to revive. It's a pity that after mastering the spirit control, there is no chance to go to the real world. But, after a pause, Makatao Senju once again set his eyes on the noble and weak-looking Zaraki Futeya in front of him, and said, Zaraki Futeya, your thinking has been in a misunderstanding from the beginning. Even if you destroy the Huko Mundo, there'll still be an endless supply of hollows born in the real world. It doesn't matter. The hollows that have just been born in the real world are extremely weak. Even if I am alone, I can destroy them all. Zaraki Futeya stated calmly. So, have you never thought about completely cutting off the emergence of hollows from the root? Senju Makatao said in an induced way. You mean, completely destroying humanity? Zaraki Fugai murmured, frowning slightly, as if seriously thinking about this possibility. Senju Makatao. Is this guy's brain circuit really normal? No, it should be said that his brain circuit is abnormal, which is normal. Then, in order to prevent Zaraki Fugai from really thinking of any extraordinary conclusions, Senju Makatao spoke directly. Everything exists for a reason. Why didn't Soul Society completely defeat Huko Mundo? With the strength of Captain General Yamamoto, he might be able to completely destroy Huko Mundo. The reason why he didn't take action is nothing more than Huko Mundo, or it can be said that hollows, as common sense says, play an irreplaceable role in the stability of the world. In this case, if you want to eliminate all hollows, you're undoubtedly making an enemy of the world. Zaraki Fugai's expression did not waver at all, and he said calmly. Even if we're enemies of the world, that's fine. Senju Makatao looked at Zaraki Fugai with admiration. In terms of realm, it's you guys who say the most ruthless and decisive words in the most fragile manner. Then, Senju Makatao shook his head and said, but you can't do it, and you don't want the whole world to fall into collapse, and countless innocent lives will be implicated, right? Hearing this, Zaraki Fugai's expression was silent for a while. Obviously, a person who would have high-sounding words on his mouth is enough to show that he is not purely evil, but rather hesitant and concerned in his heart. After a moment, Zaraki Fugai slowly answered. Hollows will only bring endless chaos and killing to the world. Compared with eternal tranquility, temporary pain is tolerable. The world will never be unable to function without something. The destruction of the old order will soon bring about a new order, and it is an order without hollows. No, Senju Makatao continued to shake his head and said. What I mean is that since the existence of the hollow is meaningful, then the truly reasonable and rational approach is not to let the world bear the pain of destroying the hollow, but to find an existence that can replace the hollow. After a pause, Senju Makatao pushed his glasses and continued. As long as the existence of the hollow loses its meaning to the world, it will naturally be abandoned and destroyed by the world. So, what you really need to do is not to indulge in disorderly and brutal destruction, but to find a way to innovate the world and push the world to an era where it can exist stably without the hollow. Seireitei, from the beginning, you took the wrong path. Seireitei's expression, which had always been extremely rational and calm, fluctuated violently at this moment. The next moment, Seireitei's facial features were almost distorted, as if the firm belief he had always had in the past had been destroyed, trembling, twisting, and crying. But, I only have this power, the power gained from my sister's death. You're telling me I've taken the wrong path? No, I can't do it. I have nothing left except power. My reputation, status, and power are all completely lost. How can I move the times forward? Just as you lose Hilu, who was standing behind Seireitei, bit her lip and slowly stretched out her hand, as if trying to comfort Seireitei. Senju Cheng walked up to Seireitei step by step, and said with a gentle and firm look, Seireitei, your pain, the pain of losing someone you cherish, I can understand. Senju Cheng thought for a while and gave an example. My most cherished friend, Shinigami, also died at the hands of an Cheng-ge. Chapter 121 Resonance and Trust. At this moment, Senju Cheng tried to immerse himself in sadness so as to better resonate with Seireitei. In just a few breaths, Senju Cheng recalled his interactions with Shinigami thousands of times, trying to discover the truth, goodness and beauty about him and his own sadness. Tears, finally, could not be stopped from overflowing. For hollows, whether it is out of duty as a god of death or personal feelings, I also hate them very much. When saying this, Senju Cheng's tears overflowed again. This is, against his will. Because of his identity as a god of death, it is true that Senju Cheng is hostile to most hollows, but he can't hate the real caricature Duodex Vank in his memory. Don't ask why Senju Cheng can remember the complete name of a hollow, just ask for interest. And listening to these words, Seireitei seemed to be walking alone in the darkness that was not recognized by the whole world, and suddenly found a companion who could understand him a little. As someone who could monitor the entire Seireitei, Seireitei knew afterwards that Senju Cheng had been attacked in Cheng-ge, and even knew all the detailed reports by heart. Makao-kun, Seireitei murmured. However, Senju Cheng did not wait for Seireitei to break away from the atmosphere and rhythm he had created with great difficulty, and spoke with tenderness and determination in his tearful eyes. Seireitei-kun, maybe I don't have such extreme ideas as you, but I have always loved peace, and I have thought more than once about how to stop the meaningless chaos and fighting between the Shinigami and the hollows from the root. My research on spirits and spirit particles has been carried out with the help of my unique zanpakutō ability. If you believe me, maybe one day I will create an existence that is independent of the hollows and can completely replace the hollows. By then, once the hollows have completely lost their meaning to the world, it will be the moment when the hollows completely disappear in history. Before that, I hope you can wait patiently for a while. Seireitei heard this, and his eyes were full of hope again, and he couldn't help but reveal shock and gratitude. In a sense, Seireitei deeply felt the gap between himself and Makao Senju in terms of the realm of thought. Although Seireitei is much older than Makao Senju, at this moment he inexplicably felt that he was being told by his sister in the past. Sire, give me a little time, I will solve all this for you, and I will definitely protect you. However, the cowardice and incompetence in the past, in the end, only saw my sister die in the hands of the hollow. And compared to my idea of forcibly trying to eliminate all the hollows, there is no doubt that Senju Cheng's plan and ideas are more than one step ahead. However, in that case, the hope of completely eliminating the hollows can only be placed on Makao-kun. No. Seireitei slowly uttered a word, which made Senju Cheng's heart tighten, thinking that his plan to deceive Seireitei had failed. Seireitei seemed to have regained his usual rationality and calmness, and then spoke. Makao-kun, if there is anything you need Sire to do, please tell me as much as you can. I can't let Makao-kun bear everything alone. Senju Cheng. There is no doubt that this is a great surprise for Seireitei's transformation. Although, Makao Senju's not sure how long this statement would convince future Seireitei, as long as he could use future Seireitei's power in this urgent situation, many things would be much easier. Then, Makao Senju continued to move without hesitation and quickly headed towards the direction of the 4th Division's barracks, and asked future Seireitei about Aizen Sussex' specific hollowification plan. In a sense, within the scope of the Seireitei, future Seireitei could almost know everything. It's just that Makao Senju didn't trust you lose Hilu in the past, and you lose Hilu exchanged information with Makao Senju, more out of personal pleasure. Now, after briefly fooling future Bazaraki, Makoto Senju took the initiative to ask future Bazaraki without hesitation. Makoto-kun, let Yulu's Healu assist you next. My zanpakutō power is extremely weak under the influence of the seal in the hell. I have almost reached the limit of condensing a phantom for such a moment. The phantom of Zaraki Fire has been following Senju Makoto closely and said. Although the information we know so far shows that Aizen Sasuke has no will towards Makoto-kun, we have to admit that he is indeed a dangerous man. With the last sentence, Zaraki Fire's phantom disappeared completely, leaving only Yulu's Healu in the phantom state. Yulu's Healu seemed to be somewhat happy and relaxed about the fact that Zaraki Fire was fooled. He directly began to explain to Senju Makoto in detail the entire process of Aizen Sasuke's hollowification incident, and Senju Makoto used Yulu's Healu to accurately find the location of Aizen Sasuke and Tosen Kaname. As you can see, I'm waiting for you. Aizen Sasuke's smile was gentle and contagious, as if he was waiting for his most important friend. Sure enough, you're extremely dangerous. All this was done by you. Senju Makoto questioned, holding the zanpakutō that had been truly liberated and reconstructed with spirit particles in one hand. Aizen Sasuke pushed his thick black-framed glasses and smiled without saying a word. Listening to Yulu's Healu's description of Aizen Sasuke's reaction, Senju Makoto seemed to hesitate for a moment, and then pointed the zanpakutō in his hand at Aizen Sasuke and shouted. I'm asking you, why? Why do you do these things? Although under the influence of Mirror Flower and Water Moon, there was no one in Senju Makoto's sight. All emotions and reactions were almost in a state of non-physical performance, which was a great challenge for Senju Makoto's acting skills. However, when he could still clearly sense the spiritual pressure of Unohana Retsu, Makoto Senju was no longer anxious. Instead, he realized that it was a good opportunity for him to hold back Aizen Sasuke and take the opportunity to crack the ability of Mirror Flower and Water Moon. This was also one of the plans that Makoto Senju had made long ago. Instead of falling into the ability of Mirror Flower and Water Moon without knowing when, and having fatal hallucinations at certain critical moments, Makoto Senju chose to take advantage of the opportunity of Ichimura Jin's contact with Aizen Sasuke to actively fall into Mirror Flower and Water Moon, and then through the information gap, he deliberately sought the opportunity to crack the ability of Mirror Flower and Water Moon in Aizen Sasuke. Chapter 122. Breaking the mirror. Facing Senju Makoto's questioning, Aizen Sasuke said calmly. Makoto, what's important is not what I did, but where all the results will lead to, and why all these results will appear. Senju Makoto said in a calm voice. What do you want to say? Don't you understand what kind of evil you have committed and how many Shinigami you have killed? Makoto, my zanpakutō has never been stained with blood. It just gives the Shinigami a chance to move to a higher level. After a pause, Aizen Sasuke asked back in a calm tone. Makoto, but what position do you intend to appear here? Of course, Senju Makoto pointed the zanpakutō in his hand at Aizen Sasuke, rushed towards Aizen Sasuke, and shouted. As a soldier of the 4th Division of the 13th Division of the Gotti, Senju Makoto, I will stop your evil deeds. As Senju Makoto suddenly took the initiative to attack Aizen Sasuke, Tosen Kaname's face flashed with anger, and he was about to block Aizen Sasuke in front of him to stop Senju Makoto from offending Aizen Sasuke. How can a soldier of the 4th Division be qualified to draw his sword against Lord Aizen? However, as if noticing Tosen Kaname's actions, before Tosen Kaname took action, Aizen Sasuke took the lead and extending his hand to block Tosen Kaname and spoke. Don't act rashly, this is a communication between me and Makoto-kun. Yes, Lord Aizen. Tosen Kaname's face showed a trace of reluctance and anger, but he still obeyed. In the blink of an eye, Senju Makoto had appeared in front of Aizen Sasuke, holding his zanpakutō in both hands and slashing at Aizen Sasuke's neck. However, Shinigami was caught by Aizen Sasuke, who seemed to be unprepared, with 2 fingers stretched out, and the blade was lightly clamped. Aizen Sasuke looked at the astonished and solemn expression on Senju Makoto's face, and even had time to push his glasses and said, Makoto, this is not surprising at all. Although Makoto is a high-level existence who has walked farther than me on the right path, I am still hundreds of years ahead of you, Aizen Sasuke said as he slowly released his fingers that were clamping Shinigami, and looked at Senju Makoto who quickly retreated 10 steps away with a flash step, and continued. Unohana Retsu taught you the way of Kido and medical skills, and Shiuin Yorishi also taught you the flash step quite carefully, but Makoto's slashing technique is indeed a bit unbearable. Is it because of interest? If Makoto is interested, I can teach you some tricks such as Ghost Way, Kendo, and White Fighting. Senju Cheng, who needed to listen to Yulu's Hilu's retelling, sneered and said, "Ha. A mere deputy captain, you actually speak nonsense." In an instant, Aizen Sasuke, who had always maintained a calm and indifferent appearance, couldn't hold it anymore. Seireitei, as if the fairy he valued and admired the most was insulted and defiled by a sloppy beggar, was so angry that his whole face turned red. "Asshole, what do you think Aizen-sama is, a mere captain?" Before Seireitei could finish, as Aizen Sasuke glanced at Seireitei, some invisible pressure pressed heavily on Seireitei, making Seireitei sober up instantly. "Yes, I don't want to repeat myself again. Don't interrupt my communication with Cheng without permission," Aizen Sasuke said. "I'm sorry, Aizen-sama." As Seireitei apologized, Aizen Sasuke turned his head to look at Senju Cheng again. His eyes seemed a little complicated, and then he murmured. Sure enough, Cheng instinctively stepped to a higher level, but his eyes and vision are still bound by the Gotti 13. The position doesn't mean anything. Whether I serve as the captain does not depend on whether the Central 46th Chamber and the Gotti 13 confirm that I am qualified, but depends on whether I think it is necessary. As Yulu's Healy repeated Aizen Sasuke's words almost synchronously, Senju Cheng's ears continued to hear Yulu's Healy's reminder. "Cheng, be careful." Aizen Sasuke draws his sword. In an instant, Senju Cheng's expression suddenly condensed, as if he showed great importance to Aizen Sasuke's drawing of his sword. However, the next moment, Senju Cheng took the initiative to rush towards Aizen Sasuke, holding the Shinigami, the unsolved state condensed by spirit, controlling both hands and slashing at Aizen Sasuke without any fancy moves. Of course, with Senju Cheng's level of swordsmanship, he couldn't do anything fancy, and only knew the most basic swordsmanship moves. And Aizen Sasuke's heart instinctively flashed a trace of doubt. In Aizen Sasuke's heart, Senju Cheng is definitely not that reckless and ignorant person. How could he know that he can't win? However, in a flash, Aizen Sasuke didn't give him too much time to think, and instinctively raised his hand and held Mirror Flower Water Moon to easily block Senju Cheng's zanpakutō. However, at the moment when the two zanpakutō collided, Senju Cheng was directly shattered into countless spirit particles, and then quietly entangled with the Mirror Flower Water Moon in Aizen Sasuke's hand. In an instant, in the sight of Cheng Senju, the figure that was originally covered by Aizen Sasuke through Mirror Flower and Water Moon reappeared in front of Cheng Senju. Aizen Sasuke's somewhat surprised expression showed his surprise at the scene just now. The ability of Mirror Flower and Water Moon cracked. If it was a normal zanpakutō that collided with Aizen Sasuke, there would naturally be no such effect. However, what Cheng Senju used just now was originally a false Shinigami, which was also mixed with a part of Cheng Senju who had been modified in advance and could be permanently and stably attached to the zanpakutō and completely extreme spirit body spirit. Therefore, in a sense, Cheng Senju is now always in contact with zanpakutō, Mirror Flower and Water Moon. More importantly, the prerequisite for achieving all this is, before launching complete hypnosis against a certain object, the blade of Mirror Flower and Water Moon is touched. Aizen Sasuke didn't realize that Senju Cheng had already fallen into the hypnosis of Mirror Flower Water Moon, and the ability he activated was limited to himself or Seireitei, passively making all the objects trapped in Mirror Flower Water Moon ignore the existence of himself and Seireitei. Therefore, Aizen Sasuke didn't really activate the perfect hypnosis ability against Senju Cheng, and was unprepared to achieve the conditions of touching the real blade in this unique way. P.S. Regarding Aizen Sasuke's Mirror Flower Water Moon ability, I personally think that it is aimed at a certain object and changes the cognition of all people who are trapped in the ability, rather than modifying each person's cognition one by one. For example, more than 100 years ago, let the other Shinigami replace Aizen to create an alibi in the Seireitei. And in the Battle of Karakura Town, let all the captains mistake an Amamo for Aizen and launch a concentrated attack. Among them, the Shinigami who replaced Aizen Sasuke in the Seireitei can better prove this point. After all, no one can guarantee who the Aizen Sasuke in the Seireitei will meet by chance. And the target object must have been affected by the Mirror Flower Water Moon, otherwise it will be invalid. Otherwise, Aizen Sasuke directly manipulated the entire Gotti 13 to attack the 0th Division as an enemy. The above is my personal opinion. If you have different opinions, you can comment. The new author will also consider adopting and modifying the plot. Chapter 123, the final chapter of the performance. The change in this moment, even Senju Cheng felt joy in his heart. The ability of zanpakutō Switjetsu, complete hypnosis, which he had been afraid of all the time since he entered the Seireitei, was finally cracked. Although for this, Senju Cheng had been planning for almost half a year in advance, and even started preparing when Ichimura-jin entered the Mao Spiritual Academy, deliberately aroused Aizen Sosok's interest in Ichimura-jin, and prompted their contact. In this way, there is no need to worry about being killed by Aizen Sosok without knowing it due to complete hypnosis. After all, the complete hypnosis of zanpakutō Suigetsu, in addition to vision, hearing, and smell, can even completely change touch. In other words, if Aizen Sosok wants to retaliate against someone, he can easily make someone completely fall into an extremely evil, beep, plot and never get rid of it, and directly collapse his will. For example, being surrounded by countless baguettes, just imagining it makes your scalp tingle. Even if you know it is fake, they are flawless in shape, appearance, touch, and pain. So, even if you know it is all fake, what is the difference between it and real experience? Of course, perhaps Aizen Sosok's character is not that of pure evil, or he is a person with extremely dark tastes, but this is enough to illustrate the terrifying degree of zanpakutō Suigetsu. Aizen Sosok looked at Senju Cheng, who retreated more than 20 meters in an instant after Shinigami's eye was shattered, and realized that something was wrong. Cheng-kun, did you achieve some goals? Aizen Sosok pushed his glasses, and his thoughts turned rapidly, and he guessed with a calm smile. So that's how it is. They retreated quickly after just touching their zanpakutō. Their target was my zanpakutō Suigetsu. That means Cheng-kun actually knew the true power of my zanpakutō and how to crack it. And all the fake performances Cheng-kun just now are fake, just to wait for the opportunity for me to draw my sword? Aizen Sosok paused and stared at Senju Cheng and continued. Then, who told Cheng-kun? Not many people in the Seireitei know this secret. So Synkaname will never betray me. 0 Division? No, as far as I know, they should be on guard against more things and will not leave the Soul King Palace easily. So that's how it is, Aizen Sosok pushed his glasses and said in a very affirmative tone. It must be Seireitei from the infernal hell, right, Cheng-kun? Although Senju Cheng knew that Aizen Sosok was probably the IQ ceiling of this world, he was still surprised that he had obtained so much information in just a short moment based on a little something wrong. More importantly, Aizen Sosok's tone seemed to be extremely clear about Seireitei's abilities, purpose, and status. Senju Cheng narrowed his eyes and asked, do you know Seireitei's existence? Of course, as long as you always have a critical mind to read the things around you, it is not difficult to detect Seireitei's existence. Seireitei's information is not a secret in the Seireitei. There are many ways to collect information, and with Seireitei's simple thinking, all his thoughts and purposes are naturally easy to see clearly. Aizen Sosok spread his hands, his expression and demeanor revealed a kind of careless disdain and arrogance, and said, Seireitei, I'm sorry to say that about you, but in my eyes, you're just such a man. Your zanpakutō ability destined you to abandon the power of your original body and pursue integration with other things. The wrong and stupid path made me laugh when I heard it. And after Aizen Sosok's words, Senju Cheng didn't change his expression at all, but Yulu's healing became completely angry. Then, Aizen Sosok said with some interest, Cheng, the only thing that makes me a little curious is how you communicated with Seireitei. Did you secretly go to the hell? Urahara Kisuke's divine body? Or is your zanpakutō ability not as I know it? These are all meaningless topics, Aizen Sosok. Senju Cheng skipped Aizen Sosok's question and said directly, it's almost time for your performance to end. As Senju Cheng's voice fell, a huge barrier suddenly rose around, completely covering the entire 4th Division barracks. The entire 4th Division's barracks have been sealed off and monitored by the Kidenshi. I'm already outside the scope of your ability Mirror Flower and Water Moon. Once you launch an attack on me, it will undoubtedly expose the fact that a certain enemy is hidden from the knowledge of the godly 13th Division. Senju Cheng said calmly. Pa. Aizen Sosok suddenly clapped his hands gently at Senju Cheng and said, Cheng-kun, you are worthy of being you. You really did not disappoint me. You are not the kind of reckless and unplanned person. Although there may be the help of Seireitei, it is really wonderful to push the situation to this point in your favor one by one. Indeed, if I kill you with the sword next, I will not be able to modify the related illusions about you. The Kidenshi who monitor the 4th Division through the barrier will see the incongruous reality that you are suddenly cut into 2 pieces. This is a great limitation for me who has not yet planned to leave the godly 13th Division. Then, Agent Sosok, let your performance end completely and put an end to this chaos. Senju Cheng said in a serious voice. Agent Sosok pushed his glasses and said with a smile. Yes, the performance I prepared for Makoto-kun is almost coming to an end. This time, I had a very pleasant exchange with Makoto-kun. The next time we exchange, I will prepare your favorite tea for you. Then, Agent Sosok seemed to ignore Senju Makoto, and turned around with Tosen Kaname to retreat to the shadow corner behind him, and disappeared in front of Senju Makoto. Lord Aizen, is it really okay to let Senju Makoto go like this? If he reveals all this to the Seireitei, who knows, Tosen Kaname said with some concern. Don't worry, Makoto-kun is not such a stupid person, and even if Makoto-kun is a disciple of Unohana Retsu, his status in the Seireitei is still not enough to defame someone without any evidence. After a pause, Agent Sosok said with a smile. What's more, the real person who did such a bad thing as the holoification experiment left a lot of irrefutable evidence. Chapter 124. The destroyed 12th Division. Lord Aizen, you just don't want to kill Senju Makoto, right? Your ability should not be able to permanently immunize you with just one touch. You only need to, however, before Tosen Kaname could finish, he sensed the terrible oppression from Aizen Sosok and realized that he had said the wrong thing again. Kaname, please show the most basic respect to Makoto-kun. It is rude to call him by his name. Aizen Sosok said calmly. Yes, Lord Aizen. Also, don't speculate on the ability of Kyokusui-jetsu. Agent Sosok said. Suddenly, Tosen Kaname couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. After all, speculating on the ability of others without authorization is undoubtedly misunderstood as harboring malicious intent. Then, Agent Sosok ignored Tosen Kaname, but looked at the zanpakutō Kyokusui-jetsu in his hand with a bit of eagerness. In fact, Agent Sosok was not as Tosen Kaname said. Instead, he had tried many times to activate the ability of Mirror Flower Water Moon on Senju Makoto, trying to make Senju Makoto fall into complete hypnosis again. But, failed. Agent Sosok judged from Senju Makoto's tone, expression, sight, etc. When he talked to him, and judged that Senju Makoto at this moment could really distinguish his position and voice. So, Makoto-kun, it seems that you left a part of yourself on my Mirror Flower Water Moon? Is it a spirit particle that cannot be seen by the naked eye? Agent Sosok's eyes hidden behind that black-framed glasses became more and more eager. After confirming this fact, Agent Sosok was even reluctant to put the knife back into the sheath, for fear that those tiny spirit particles would accidentally leave the blade and become impossible to find. What a precious gift, Makoto. On the other hand, after Agent Sosok left, although the 4th Division's barracks had been sealed off by the Kidmushu's barrier, Senju Makoto knew that the barrier was not enough to stop Agent Sosok. More importantly, in Agent Sosok's last tone, Senju Makoto heard a hint of bad feeling. The final chapter of the performance. Instead of the end. Agent Sosok, what do you want to do? Senju Makoto whispered with some annoyance. Although Senju Makoto learned Agent Sosok's true attitude towards him from Uluhilu, Agent Sosok, who knew the existence of Zaraki Fire, would never talk to himself and reveal his true thoughts. Regarding those who wrote Senju Makoto's name in the room and stared at it for a long time, it was undoubtedly a lie made up by Zaraki Fire in the past. The purpose is to reduce Senju Makoto's hostility towards Agent Sosok and prevent Senju Makoto from destroying Agent Sosok's plan. Therefore, Zaraki Shuang only judged from Agent Sosok's behavior that Agent Sosok's attitude towards Senju Makoto was somewhat special and non-hostile. As for this holoification experiment, Agent Sosok said something to Tosen Kaname about Senju Makoto. In Senju Makoto's view, the real reference significance is not great. Because, who can guarantee that a man like Agent Sosok is telling the truth to Tosen Kaname? However, it is possible to determine with a high probability that Agent Sosok does not seem to have the intention to kill himself, and even this holoification experiment puts himself in a special position. And at this time, Senju Makoto turned his head and looked in the direction of Unohana Retsu's courtyard. Boom! An astonishing blood-colored spiritual pressure burst out, bloody, murderous, terrifying. Even under the influence of the terrifying blood-colored spiritual pressure, the barrier established by the two ghost masters who were close to the captains of the 13th Division of the Gotti seemed to be shaken. That is that Unohana-sensei. Senju Makoto said in shock, as if he could vaguely see the graceful figure of the end of his sight at the center of the blood-colored spiritual pressure. At the same time, Kinpachi Zaraki, who had just arrived at the 12th Division's barracks, seemed to have sensed something and suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of the 4th Division's barracks. Subconsciously, Kinpachi Zaraka licked his lips, and some memories hidden deep in his memory began to revive. However, before Kinpachi Zaraka could think more, a somewhat short figure pounced on Kinpachi Zaraka like a beast. Annoying. Kinpachi Zaraka slashed at the figure with his backhand, and a line of blood appeared, and the figure was chopped more than 10 meters away, directly knocking down the wall. Then, Kinpachi Zaraka said to Yaoru Kusaka on his shoulder with some dissatisfaction. "Yaorai, is this the strong enemy you sensed? He is obviously just a vice-captain. His spiritual pressure, which is close to the captain level, is completely supported by the aura of the hollow." "Oh, don't be angry, Xiaojian. I didn't expect that the spiritual pressure of Seireitei Hiri would become like this, otherwise how could I sense it wrong?" Kusaka Yaorai pouted and said a little aggrieved. "And Xiaojian, don't kill Hiri, she is one of my rare friends. We discussed to establish a fun association some time ago." TSK Zaraka Kinpachi said dissatisfiedly, and then turned his attention to Seireitei Hiri, the vice-captain of the 12th Division, and said, "Rather than calling him a god of death, it's better to say that he is a hollow that is almost completely losing himself. It's meaningless to have a spiritual pressure close to the captain level. Cutting such an opponent will only make your sword dull." At this moment, Seireitei Hiri, who slowly crawled out of the ruins, was just as Kinpachi Zaraka said. His appearance was already very close to that of a hollow, and there was even a hollow hole slowly forming in his chest. Perhaps even Seireitei Hiri's chaotic consciousness that was close to instinct had noticed the reckless and terrifying spiritual pressure bursting out of Kinpachi Zaraka, and realized that he was not at the same level as Kinpachi Zaraka, so he just lay there like a wild beast, not daring to move rashly. Kusaka Yaoru, who was sometimes a bit naive, also reacted. Looking at the 12th Division's barracks that were almost like a ruin in front of him, he said in confusion. "Yeah, why? Not only has Hiri become this strange, the 12th Division seems to have been destroyed as well. Where is the captain of the 12th Division?" Too lazy to think, Kinpachi Zaraka waved his hand, ignored Seireitei Hiri beside him, and strode into the 12th Division's barracks. "We'll know after we go in and take a look." Corpses, bloodstains, and broken limbs were everywhere. Obviously, even if the 12th Division was not completely wiped out, the entire 12th Division was probably seriously damaged, except for a part of the Science and Technology Development Bureau that was underground. Finally, as Kinpachi Zaraka arrived at the captain's room of the 12th Division, which had collapsed for the most part, the captain of the 12th Division, Kisuke Uehara, was lying inside. He seems to be still alive. I'll come wake him up, RDA. Chapter 125 Two Broken Jades. As Kusaka Yaoru directly hit Uehara Kisuke's face, he directly hit him with a foot version of the sky drop. In an instant, in Kinpachi Zaraka's sight, he clearly saw that Uehara Kisuke's face seemed to be completely stepped on and sunken. And Kusaka Yaoru's whole body seemed to be stepping on a trampoline, and his soft and petite body bounced up again, flexibly turning in the air, and fell to the ground with arms open to both sides. Hey-ya! For a moment, Kusaka Yaoru's somewhat cute and meaningless sounds and Uehara Kisuke's screams sounded almost synchronously. Then, Kusaka Yaoru turned his head and saw that Uehara Kisuke was rolling on the ground with his hands covering his face. "It hurts." Kusaka Yaoru naturally gave Uehara Kisuke a unique nickname. Little Futon? Uehara Kisuke was slightly startled, and subconsciously let go of his hands, which still had a pair of red feed marks on his face, and then he realized what Kusaka Yaoru was talking about. Wait, then, Uehara Kisuke recalled something, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Yoichi. For a moment, a lot of memories quickly flooded into Uehara Kisuke's mind. Since Uehara Kisuke usually has a lot of research to do, Shiguin Yorishi first asked the captain of the 6th Division, Kachika Jinline, to bring 2 gifts to Unohana Retsu, and then went to the 12th Division with Uehara Kisuke to the B family to participate in the inheritance ceremony of the title of the head of the family. The sudden change happened at that moment. A zanpakutō suddenly pierced Shiguin Yorishi completely from behind, and even he himself was knocked to the ground before he could react. In the last corner of his eyes, Uehara Kisuke clearly remembered the shocking scene, the figure who was also wearing a death suit holding a Hojoku in his hand, and Yorishi's body also quickly showed signs of hollowing. Back here, Uehara Kisuke, with his pupils shrinking, stood up quickly, looked around, and looked at the half-collapsed 12th Division barracks and the large amount of blood and corpses. He couldn't help but feel sad and angry. Although Uehara Kisuke has not been a captain of the 12th Division for a long time, and he is not active and responsible in handling team affairs. In addition to his own research, he also puts more energy into the newly established Technology Development Bureau, but it does not mean that Uehara Kisuke has no feelings for the 12th Division. The next moment, Uehara Kisuke noticed the figure of Saraga, who was following behind Kinpachi Zaraki from a distance, but seemed to be afraid to attack. The hollow posture, the hollow eyes, the hollow spiritual pressure, and the hollow hole that has begun to form. Damn it. The next moment, Uehara Kisuke burst out with instant steps and wide fights that made Kinpachi Zaraki look sideways. Almost in one contract, he completely subdued Saraga, whose spiritual pressure was now extremely close to the captain level, with his bare hands. This scene also made Kinpachi Zaraki's eyes light up. He didn't expect that Kisuke Uehara, who usually behaved insignificantly and weakly, actually had such a skill. Just from the instant step and wide fight he showed, Kinpachi Zaraki felt that Kisuke Uehara was definitely much stronger than Kensame Gurume. Kisuke Uehara, come and fight with me. Kinpachi Zaraki invited him instinctively. Sorry, Captain Zaraki, I have more important things to do now. Kisuke Uehara lifted up Hiri Saraka, who was temporarily blocked by the binding technique, and turned his head to look in the direction of the 4th Division's barracks. 5 chaotic captain-level spiritual pressures after hollowification, and a large number of hollowed-out spiritual pressures at the level of chief officers and vice-captains. This made Kisuke Uehara look extremely ugly. In addition to himself, there was actually someone who created something like the Hodyoku, and he used it so unscrupulously for the hollowing experiment of the god of death. Then, Uehara Kisuke completely ignored Zaraki Kinpachi, and directly carried Sarakazuki Hiri to the corner of the collapsed captain's room, and then passed through the complex ghost arts and entered a secret room. On the other side, Aiden Sosok easily used counter-demon mutual killing to offset the obstruction of the barrier, and took Tosen Kaname out of the 4th Division's barracks, and then stood on a high building where he could just see the Unohana-Retsu courtyard. Counter-demon mutual killing. Using the same quality and quantity of the opponent's ghost arts to completely offset the opponent's ghost arts. In theory, this method can offset all ghost arts, and it is a top-level ghost art. Tosen Kaname took out an instrument from his body, seemed to be confirming something, and then reported. Lord Aizen, Zaraki Kinpachi has arrived at the 12th Division's barracks, and Uehara Kisuke has also woken up. Aiden Sosok smiled indifferently and said, the time is almost right. Uehara Kisuke will probably come over to take his leave soon. Then we can see the effect of the Hodyoku in Uehara Kisuke's hand. Lord Aizen, I don't quite understand. Why don't you choose to directly seize Uehara Kisuke's Hodyoku to confirm the effect yourself? Tosen asked. Why do you want to seize it? Aiden Sosok asked back, pushed his glasses and spoke. Yes, you must not harbor arrogance in your heart. Even though we are Shinigami, our energy is also limited. It will take a lot of time to completely complete the Hodyoku in your hand, which is condensed from the soul of a Shinigami. Uehara Kisuke finally guided the Hodyoku made up of the soul of a hollow in his hand to completion, but Uehara Kisuke's awe of the Hodyoku seemed to exceed his desire to explore it. He did not try to continue to perfect the Hodyoku, but instead planned to destroy and seal it. However, after this incident, whether it is to solve the problem of curing the hollowization of these Shinigami or to prepare means to deal with me, his secret enemy, Uehara Kisuke will definitely choose to continue to perfect and explore the power of the Hodyoku. Tosen Kaname felt the domineering aura of Aizen Sosok, who seemed to have everything under control, and felt numb all over. His admiration and awe for Aizen Sosok deepened, and he asked worriedly, Lord Aizen, once Uehara Kisuke completely completes his Hodyoku and thereby also transcends the limits of the god of death, will it affect Lord Aizen's plan? Aiden Sosok smiled helplessly and said, What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't it better to have more companions who transcend the limits of the god of death? If Uehara Kisuke can really choose this, it will only bring more fun to this boring world. I see, I'm sorry, Lord Aizen, I'm superficial. Tosen Kaname apologized quickly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.